I have here Benjas,
Hello, everyone.
and I got, of course, Kamen Rider Furry.
Which is me.
Yes, it is you. We were gonna have a different. We were gonna have a different type of show this week. Well, I said we were, but things happened, unfortunately. But and the original idea was that we were gonna get Zaichi to have an interview, to sit down and talk about his game of his fan game that he made. Unfortunately, things just didn't pan through. I'm gonna definitely try to get him for the next episode, and like when it does, I'll inform everybody so that you guys can post questions to him and everything. But for now, we decided, okay, since like I want to keep us into the realm of video games, and also this is a good way to like end cap a lot of discussion of the video game stuff. I figured we'd go back one last time into the video game like discussion. I know we did 3 parts of it. We did one part when I was doing the show solo, and then we did another part with our former co-hosts as well. And they said there's things. And now we have a third host here, and we have to talk about their experiences. And then afterwards, what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the team up games. Because, like, believe it or not, Saint Seiya was not just in his own games. Also, he's also in part of like not many games, but it's an interesting discussion to have about these remaining games that are left. That's why I would like to call it the team up games. So there's a few games here that we can discuss here, and there's some interesting factoids about these games as well going into. So it's gonna be an interesting discussion, and hopefully y'all will enjoy that. And also, like we said, also if you saw that poster I put up on our Discord, not our Discord, on our Twitter, we are going to look at the final episodes of the season 2 of Saint Seiya, Knights of the Zodiac, the CGI show. Like I said, I think that's going to be the bulk of our episode right there, just discussing those episodes. But hey, we're going to discussing these games, and we're going to what we're up to for the next couple of episodes afterwards. So why don't we not waste any time? Let's have a little bit of discussion as to let's go back to the video game well here for a little bit. Becca, since you're the new person here in town, have you had any experiences with any of the Saint Seiya games like prior to this what we're going to talk about? Like, have you played any of the Famicom games, the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, 4, PC, or any of the mobile games?
Yes, I actually do have quite a bit of experience with the games, but the ones that I actually have on my position that I have played the most, and those are the ones that I actually have the most experience with, are the PlayStation 3 games. And well, in the latest one that was both PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4, the last console game that got released, Soldier Soul, or
yes,
Soul, yeah. That's the one that I particularly have a very strong affinity for that game, because that's actually the last time that the voice actor for the Mexican dub, the original voice actor for Seiya, actually got to play the character, Jesus Barrero.
I mentioned that one in the last episode when we discussed that.
Yeah, and the game also has a Spanish dub, which was like it blew our minds, because they got most of the original cast back, and it's wonderful. Like, it's a wonderful experience to play through, like hearing those the classic voices in Spanish with that, which was quite a move for a Japanese company to do that, and to go out of their way to try and do that, considering especially that Benjas and that it's not that charitable in that regard when it comes to taking Latin American dubbings and other stuff into their games.
Yeah.
So those are the games that I have the most experience with. Particularly the first one, Battle for Sanctuary. That's the one probably that I enjoyed the most. I played the hell out of that game. I actually bought all the DLC for that game.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I have played the mobile games. I have played the Awakening, and I played what's the other one that got recently closed down, like fairly recently? Cosmo Fantasy?
Yeah, Cosmo Fantasy.
You mean the one that we found out is not actually closed down, because mine still updates for some reason?
Oh god, man, that'd be consistent.
No one told the lone guy who's working in the server to like unplug it.
I straight up jump scared Ramses the last time when we talked about this, because I was like, "Look," I sent him a screenshot. I was like, "Look, my game's still there."
I don't believe you. And I looked at my phone. I'm like,
I mean, so long as they keep paying that guy's wage, I don't particularly mind.
Yeah, but keep going.
Anyway, I have played those, but I have to be honest, I don't like mobile games. I really don't, especially gacha games. I fucking hate gacha games. So I just couldn't make myself play them, even if they were Saint Seiya games. But I have experienced them in one way or another. And even though I haven't played any of them, I do know of the PlayStation 2 games and the SNES game. It was called Saint Seiya Ogon Densetsu.
Yeah, that was for the Famicom, the original NES.
Yeah, I do have knowledge on them, but I have not played those games specifically.
I'll tell you this much right now. Like I'm gonna repeat everything I said back in the episode, I believe, when I said this. You can tell it's a game of its time. You can totally tell it was a game like the first two Famicom games were a game of their time because they came out around like the time that Dragon Quest had come out, and every company at that time was trying to capitalize on Dragon Quest, and also they were trying to capitalize on like so many other games as well. I think so in essence, the first Saint Seiya game was trying to capitalize on Xanadu. I don't know if you're familiar with that game by Falcom, which I think if you're to play any version that came here in the United States, it'd be you would be looking for the one called Fast Xanadu, which came out actually came out here in the United States, which is like a spin-off of that game, which is more of a game that's like more in line with like Zelda 2.
Mm.
And then you can tell it's because they can what they did with Ogon Densetsu, the first one, was it had RPG mechanics, but they also wanted to do side-scrolling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it just became a mess because it felt also too. It's like we need to not only make a game that capitalizes on these RPG elements that are popular right now, but also we need to make money so we can sell the guidebooks. So there's a lot of really cryptic stuff to that game.
Yeah, I can tell. I've seen gameplays of it, and it just looks like the classic Famicom NES game that is just like most of it is bull BS just for the sake of trying to make it as difficult and as long as possible. I mean, that's how they did games back in the day, so I cannot blame them for it.
Yeah, best example was Castlevania 2. A lot of people are like, "Oh my god, it's been mistranslated." No, like contrary to popular belief, it was not mistranslated. It was intentionally done to fool with the player as a way to like say, "Hey, if you, it was supposed to be that old school way of like people were supposed to come together and like share their tips with the other kids on the schoolyard." But in reality, it was just like, hey, if you got stuck, you buy the book, you buy the guidebook, and that's where they got a lot of profits out of those things.
Well, I mean,
So
wasn't Mario 2 like famously way too hard, and so the version that we got's not even the same game?
Yes.
yeah,
That's
but
actually an
They
entirely
really did
different
just-
game.
Especially in Japan, they really wanted those games to be hard.
Yeah,
because-
but the thing
because
was-
there was no like saving system for most of them, and there was not a ton of replay value for the story, so you had to
Yeah.
make it challenging gameplay wise.
And the thing was with Mario 2, that's a very different kind of challenge where it's like it's trial and error. Where it's like you can brute force your way into you can if you knew what you were doing, you can brute force your way into Mario 2. Like Mario 2 Japan or like Lost World or Lost Levels, you can brute force your way into it. I've actually brute forced my way into that game somehow. Don't ask me how. I just did it one afternoon. I just turned on my Switch. I'm like, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play it once on the Nintendo. I brute forced my way into it.
It involved a hammer.
Yeah,
And-
literally. It involved a lot of swearing. But
It involved a hammer, a lot of swearing, and a couple $100 in repairs, but we made it work.
yeah, but with Saint Seiya Ogon Densetsu, what it is, it's like, okay, they'll tell you, they'll say something like, okay, you need to go here, but it's like, how do you get to here? You need to go to this location. Where is this location you want me to go to? That's kind of difficulty. That's the kind of difficulty where it's like, okay, they want people to either get together and like get a place like figure it out with like between each other or buy the guidebook. And then the second game, I feel like what ended up happening with the second game is like they're like, okay, what's popular now? Portopia? Okay, Portopia is a point and click game. Let's put the point and click elements and then put the side scrolling elements and see what happens. And like, oh no.
I feel like they really missed the. Okay, so everybody get your drinks ready because I'm about to mention the other anime again. But I feel like they missed the opportunity to do something really cool like Sailor Moon did.
Yeah.
Which was Sailor Moon Another Story, where you got to fight against all the old villains, but it was like a non-canonical like new story with
Yeah.
new villains and stuff. But they brought back everything and they made like a fun RPG. I think that kind of game would have fit Saint Seiya so much to be able to like go through the Silver Saints and then go through the Gold
Saints.
Houses, but that not really be the storyline. They're just kind of characters in the game that you encounter.
And then with they did sort of do that with the Game Boy game. Did they have a Game Boy game based on the Saint Paradise cards?
I think so. Yeah, it did have quite a few other media attached to it. I have never been able to find like gameplay of it.
It's a good game. It's a good game because I remember that was like one of the earliest games I remember getting on the old days when it's like when you can easily get ROMs and stuff like that. I remember playing that game. It was actually pretty good. And like if you're looking for a type of game like RPG, like the traditional RPG, that would be the one you'd be looking for. But as I said before in the last episode when we discussed it, I think the biggest downfall of Saint Seiya is that it missed out on like that key period where anime games were like really good, and like the Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, the Genesis Mega Drive / 3DO, the PC Engine / TurboGrafx 16 era, and also like the PlayStation 1 Saturn days. They just missed out on like, and those were like the prime years for like all the good, like all the really good anime video games. But like I said, like we eventually got to get on the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 2 games. If you're wondering, Benjas, have you played any of the Dragon Ball Budokai games?
I think I played. I think I was 2 back in the day. Like it was a long time ago.
Well, okay. If you played those games, it's a reskin of those games, which is actually. But here's the thing: it's not a bad thing. It's actually not a bad thing because they're a solid game for like an anime game for an anime fighter. That's a solid base to put your game into. So it's not like I'm not saying it's like, oh my god, they just copy pasted. No, they just took that engine, just put Saint Seiya characters in, and it's like, you know what? It works. They're actually really good. Like if you can find them, like I'm not gonna encourage sailing the high seas if you know what I mean. But if you eventually find it, when you're yo hoing, it's actually worth your time. That's all I gotta say. It's like so they're worth your time if you can find it. If you can find it, but like I said, like I won't say how to find it, but you might know a few peg leg people in the with eye patches that can help you out with that.
Well, I would attempt to find it, but I learned recently that my laptop can't even play PlayStation 1 games because I got the remaster of Chrono Cross and it crashes my laptop. So.
Ooh.
Well, no, because that's a completely different game. That's a completely different issue altogether. It's like they actually kind of with that game, they actually kind of like what they did is like they actually kind of rebuilt the game from the ground up. So it's not that you can't play a PlayStation 1 game. It's just whatever fancy new things they added into the game, like it just can't do it anymore.
Well, it made me really sad because that was my most anticipated game in 2022, and
I don't blame you. And you know what the worst part is? It's actually really, 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 really good. Really like one of the best one of the best remakes of an RPG right now to get. That's the worst part. I'm like, oh my god!
I think that for Christmas, I'm gonna ask for like a Nintendo card, like gift card, and just buy it on the Nintendo Wii Shop.
The eShop, yeah, you're better off. You're better off, and to be honest with you,
I know that if it doesn't run on my Wii, then I can get a refund. But with Steam, they have the policy that like if you didn't check the specs of your computer before you bought it, then oh well, basically, like you need.
No, you can return it. You have a 10-day. You have a 10-day. You have a 10-day or 3-hour. You have a 10-day or 3-hour gameplay return policy.
Oh, huh. I didn't think that they would take my return policy because I was.
No, they believe it or not. I've bought some games. But back in the days, back in the Yale days when I used to drink a lot, I bought some games, and the next day I was like, "What the fuck did I buy?"
Hey, Steam sales, drunk or not, are very intoxicating.
Exactly. I remember buying some of these games. I'm like, I am never gonna play this game ever in my life, and I just asked for a refund, and they gave it to me like a couple hours later. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, the only time that I've been able to get a refund was I bought Uno, and for whatever reason it wouldn't load, and it had something to do
Oh
with
yeah, don't worry about it. That's a very common thing with that game. That
yeah.
game is broken.
But I
That,
had
like
to
you're
show them that it would just like stall on the opening screen, and they gave me a
well.
money.
How long ago was this? Like if this was because like super recently they've been more lenient on return. So like you could actually get a return like if you ask for it. So trust me,
Well, I mean, I've had it since like July, so I doubt that.
Oh Lord. Okay.
I
Yeah,
doubt
no.
they'll give me a refund on it now. Like I've had it since
Okay.
the release date, so
Okay. What's real? What's real? What like we have gone so far off topic here.
it's
This
not
is actually
unusual.
like I think I think I'm gonna put down. I think what I'm gonna put down for an episode one of these days. I think between the three of us and my other hosts on the Saturday Morning Squad. I think we're gonna do an RPG episode, and it's gonna be the four of us just going off on RPGs.
If anybody says anything bad about Lunar, I will literally leave.
I don't think he's played it, but I have nothing but love for Lunas to me. So like I said, I'll put that. I'll pitch that idea to my co-host later because like we're actually scrambling for ideas later. But
And in this household, we don't acknowledge the PSP remake either. So I'm just
okay. You know what? We gotta go back to Saint Seiya here and talk about Saint Seiya team up games. We can discuss this off stream, and like I said, I really like. Because I don't want to talk about this, man. Now that you guys are that we went into that topic, fuck me, I want to talk about something. I want to buy an RPG. I want to go on eShop right now and buy like a. You know what? What am I even saying? I have here the first three Dragon Quests on my Switch. I should just play those for right now.
That'd be a good way to spend the time.
Yeah,
I'm 110 hours into Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I still haven't finished Chapter 5.
I need to get Atelier Ryza 2 before the third one comes out.
All right, okay. You know what? This is actually a good place to begin because we're actually gonna talk. I wouldn't call this an RPG, but it has RPG. Again, it's a hard game to really pinpoint what they're trying to do with this game. So the very first game that Saint Seiya appeared that's outside of this franchise was a game called Famicom Jump Hero Ritsuden, and the roster in this game is really cool. It has in addition to Seiya, you also have you have Goku, you have Kinnikuman Man, you have Kenshiro, Ryo Seneba from City Hunter, RA from Dr. Stump, Joseph Joestar from JoJo Part 1, Tsubasa Ozaki from Captain Tsubasa, just all these other characters who are very popular at the time. So it's like really, really, really cool. And the way that's why I can describe this game is like it has RPG elements, but
Like
it also what's up?
It's one of those games that's not as strictly an RPG, but many of the elements like the RNG and the stats and some of the gameplay, it's very akin to those, right?
Well, more along the lines of like it has side scroll, it has like top down like parts where you like going around and punching enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, how does that work with Tsubasa? Does he just kick a ball at people? I don't know. And also, is he kicking? Okay? So if you guys don't know, Captain Tsubasa is like a soccer anime. Like again, if there's ever like a clear like number 2 or number 3 anime in Mexico that people love, it's Captain Tsubasa, aka Los Super Campeones.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and considering like all these other characters I mentioned, like Kinnikuman Man and Kenshiro, is he just going around like kicking a ball at Shin's face from Fist of the North Star and just seeing like what happens? Like that boy's dead.
Some of these seem oddly matched, like because Kin from Fist of the North Star literally explodes people's heads.
Yeah.
And then you have a soccer player, so yeah, it's a little weird. Okay.
Well, and also too, it's like Kinnikuman Man has his muscle buster, and also Seiya has the rolling crush, so they can do like the muscle docking with that.
Yeah,
I secretly like Kinnikuman. I'm sorry to say that.
I don't know. Oh, I didn't post them yet. That's why you don't know.
I saw those. I saw the one thing. I saw your post on. I
did post them. That's right, on Twitter.
Yeah, you posted those statues of like Buffalo Man and Kinnikuman Soldier and what was it, the ninja?
Yes, I believe so.
I got it right.
They kept getting delayed over and over and over again. Like they were supposed to come out in I think June or July, and they just kept getting delayed. And then out of nowhere, Ami is just like, "Hey, we need X amount of dollars from you." And I was like, "Thank God."
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a celebration. It's a celebration of the 20th anniversary of Shonen Jump. And like I said, it has all these characters, and it also encapsulates every other series in terms of like references and also enemy types that you encounter in the game. It's not a game I don't think any of you guys have played by any chance or even know about.
No, I've never heard of it.
I haven't played it, but I have seen. I don't think I've heard about that one. That must be like the very first one. But I have seen quite a few of the Jump Superstar Game Boy Advance era games where they put together many of the Shonen Jump like main heroes or the most popular heroes from the entire Jump selection. Like I think that the audience, the one that they would recognize in terms of that. What's the name of the latest one that came out recently that nobody liked?
Jump Force.
Jump Force. It's kind of like the predecessor to Jump Force, but done well. and that's basically the basic idea, right? Like getting together the many popular characters, or mainly the protagonists of most of the most popular franchises from the Shonen Jump, and putting them into the game. Seiya, unfortunately, has always had like the issue of I think Seiya is the only playable character that appeared in those classic games, and only in Jump Force Seiya and Shiryu appear. Like we've never gotten like more than 3 characters from Seiya, as far as I know, or have we?
When we get to Jump Ultimate Stars, which is actually the next game on our list, because like we jumped from 1989 to 2006 was that one. So, but yeah, okay, so Seiya's the only playable character. But you also have all the access to the rest of the other saints as like assistants.
Oh, so they appear, but they're not playable per se.
Yeah, they're not playable, but they are. But I'll get to. But we're talking about Jump Ultimate Stars. We might as well get to it. It's for Jump Ultimate Stars. It's a sequel to Jump Superstars that came out, I believe, 2 years earlier for the DS. Not for the DS. Yeah, well, for the original DS. Yeah, what am I saying? I thought I was going to say the Wii, but no. Yes, this came out for the original DS, not the 3DS, and this is more. This is a fighting game more in the style of Smash Brothers. So if you want a Smash Brothers like game with Shonen Jump characters, this game is really worth it. And the roster in these games is just it is stacked. Again, Saint Seiya, the bunch of Saint Seiya characters you have Seiya as playable, and then you have all the other characters as like as assistants. You have Seiya as a playable character. You have the rest of the other saints, the rest of the main bronze saints as like assistants. And then you got what's called two helpers. You have a Mu and Athena to help, like there's that little panels you can put in to like give you boost. But in the actual game, if you're looking for actual characters, like the actual characters you're gonna be use is just Seiya. And you can use the rest of the Bronze Saints as like assistants, and each of them have like their own varying abilities with like depending on like what panel you use. Because how the game is structured is on the top part of the screen is the actual gameplay, and the bottom part of the screen is a panel, and you can put the panels in any position you want as long as they fit. And you can use those panels to either like switch characters or summon other characters with it. And like I said, some of the stuff you can do is like, for example, you can summon Iki and he does his things Genki-den. And what he does is when he comes out, he essentially freezes everybody within his vicinity of the attack.
That's neat.
So, but in competition, believe it or not, you can actually use Seiya as an assistant, and his assist is actually one of the best assists in the game.
That's great.
Because like what he can do is like, in one of his assists is that he uses the shield of Athena. The shield of Athena he uses to resurrect Athena at the end of the 12 Houses arc. Yeah. Puts it in front of him, and if you get right by it, you get a full bar free. You get a full bar of energy, just like, hey, free energy. No one's there, and no one can stop you from it.
That's pretty awesome.
And like I said, this game is stacked with characters, and like I said, this has characters from like the past, and at that point, like everything current at that point. So you had like, it's not only did he have like not only you had Saint Seiya, but you also had Kinnikuman. Man, you have Cannon Fist of the North Star, and Dojo Bizarre Adventure, but also and Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump. But you also had Bleach. You also had Gintama. You also had Naruto. You had One Piece, and Yu-Gi-Oh, and all this other stuff that was like really current at the time as well. And there's there's some weird ones on here too. Like there is some like weird choices here. Like Puyo no Fuku Jaguar. I don't know if you heard about that series.
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
It doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, it's about this guy who wants to be a musician, but this guy named Jaguar is trying to pursue him to play the recorder as his as his as his instrument, and he's harassing this guy just to play the recorder. And yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Sounds like a sport manga, but instead of trying to get him to join the team, it's like, hey, play this instrument.
Yeah, play this instrument. It's the greatest instrument of all. And they got like, oh my god, it's insane. And yeah, speaking of insane, they also had a Bobobo in the series. And there's some other weird ones here, like Space Adventure Cobra. I'm like, what? Okay, Space
Cobra.
Yeah, but he's only an assistant in that one, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, like I said,
I don't think I realized that was Shonen Jump.
It was. There's a lot of stuff.
I've only ever watched the anime. The manga has never been released over here, so I guess I just never realized.
Technically, the manga was released, but you had to pay a king's ransom for those because like those were published by Viz. But like,
I don't think they finished it, though.
No, this was like super early. Like we're talking 1980, like late 80s stuff. Like very like we're talking like 1988. And they only published it in floppy, like in 32 page like book, and a 32 page like just regular book, not like they didn't publish like how we use nowadays, like you can get like the actual like the actual volumes. No, they just gave us like 32 page like volume, like 32 page like regular ass comics.
Well, I'm personally excited, and before I say, let me preface this by saying that this is something I put on myself, not other people. I don't judge other people by this standard, but I judge myself by this standard. If I consider myself a fan of something, I'd like to have some kind of media of it, like DVDs or figures or something to represent it in my collection. And Cobra Crap is expensive, but they are releasing a pop-up parade figure of him and the robot lady, and I'm so excited to get a figure of him because his figures are like $400+.
Trust me, you're preaching to the choir to a guy who will literally sell one of his kidneys for the Figma of both Cobra and of Lady Armoroid.
Well, if you like statues, the pop-up parade line is cheap and amazing.
I saw some of them. There's some of them on my wish list.
I want them to do Saint Seiya ones because that would be like, even if it was just Seiya, just do something from that line because those figures are so well priced and they're better quality than Crane Game figures. But
and not just that, but it's like one of the cool things is like those figures are actually the same size as like like the regular, like if you're one of those people like that buy SH figure arts and or Figmas and stuff like that, they're at that same size, so they can actually be in that same scale. If you want to like pose them with like, if you want to put them in the collection as well, they'll fit in just fine.
And not necessarily between shows, but within the same properties, they are scaled to each other. Like I have Hiei and Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho, and they are scaled to each other. Like Hiei is much shorter than Kurama, so they look really good together. It's not like when you piece kind of figures from different collections, because like my Saint Seiya figures, I have some Bandai America ones, I have some like Crane Game figures and some like mini figures, so they don't look the greatest all staying together because they're not scaled properly together. Like I don't care what scale of figures are in as long as the set looks nice together. And I don't get me wrong, like I love all of my Saint Seiya merchandise, but like I really like it when they all are kind of uniform. Together. Like the same line. And even with Bandai America, the Seiya figure and the Shiryu figure are the same height, even though Seiya is supposed to be shorter than Shiryu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's reel this back. We gotta go back here. We gotta go back here and talk a little. We gotta go back to the video games here.
You're always cutting me off when I'm getting excited.
I'm sorry. Well, we got a strict schedule to fulfill out here, and yeah, I mean, as much as I want to do this off topics, it's like I don't want this going for too long either. The first two games I just described is okay. One of the game absolutely translated in English whatsoever, and I doubt we're gonna get an English translation of that game unless someone's crazy enough to translate it. Jump Ultimate Stars. If you know, like again, I'm not gonna tell you where to find these games or where to get them or where to get the translations, but they're there. There's an English translation for Jump Ultimate Stars that you can play. So there is an actual translation, and what's interesting is that they not only translated the text that's on screen, but they also translated the text in the panel as well. And it's very important because like some of the things in the game where to unlock stuff, you need to use context clues between the player text to know what panels go together, so you can get the next panel up, so you can get like the next power up for the characters. So it gives you an idea. So it tells you from the context clues and showing you the panel. It tells you like, okay, you need to use this character, and you can finish out the panel and use it, and that will make like that'll give you because like everyone has what they call a level 8, like a level 8 panel, which is just a huge fucking panel. That's like the only character you're gonna have, but they're OP as hell. And it's like, okay, so with the Dragon Ball, you have Super Saiyan 3 Goku. With Naruto, you have him in his awakened form. And then with Seiya, you actually get him because I don't think they wanted to have too many spoilers, so they gave him the Sagittarius cloth. So I don't think they gave him the final cloth, unfortunately, which I think is like. But it's like, I'll be honest with you, I love that final cloth a lot more. But well, I digress. But like, yeah, he gets the Sagittarius cloth in his for his ultimate form. Ichigo gets his Bankai form and all that stuff. Yada yada yada. But so in order to unlock that kind of thing, you need to look at the context clues within the text. Not just in the text in the screen, but also with the flavor text. I'm repeating myself, but yeah, like I said, I am not going to tell you where to find this game. I'm not going to tell you where to find this stuff. It's the translation stuff is more readily available, and I can talk a little bit about that. It's on romhacking.net. But to get the other things to play it, I'm not going to tell you how to do it because I don't want the FBI breaking through my window. I already had that happen once before. Oops, I shouldn't be saying that. But regret. What's up?
I mean, there's this really cool website called google.com, and you can type things in there. I've been
trusting less and less in Google. It's one of those things where it's like
there's this website.
There's a place called Alta Vista. There's a place called Alta Vista. Excellent.
You can go to askjeeves.com on
We're talking about Opera. We're talking about Opera. You're talking about Netscape Explorer.
Oh, also, if you go to Kazaa, you can probably
flyers while you're at it too. While you're trying to download the yeah, all while you're trying to.
LimeWire, I don't know. Mid-2000s.
Rumbling to dust as we speak. I'm pretty sure a certain segment of our audience is just transformed to dust. But yeah, I'll link to this. I'll link to at least the translation to Jump Ultimate Stars. Again, I'm not going to tell you what on other ways to put that English translation in. All I gotta say it's there. Again, like I said, I'm saying all this stuff, and I'm gonna keep on repeating this for a couple more times because I don't want anybody with a fancy suit coming to my door, handing me a subpoena because I have absolutely no money to pay for a lawyer. Please do not sue me. Do not sue Benjas. Please do not sue Kamen Rider Furry. I will absolutely not sell them out whatsoever. Please, I'm begging you, don't. There's a bit if this is a visual podcast. There should be a picture of me begging, on my knees, please, for God's sake, I have absolutely no money to get a lawyer. I'm only going to provide where you can get this information. I'm not going to tell you how to put the information or how to, get the ROMs or anything like that. Like I said, just know if you know people with a peg leg and a patch, you might be able to, know where to go. Exactly.
It's out there, fellas. Whatever you decide to do, it's your decision.
Full disclosure also. Anything else after what you do with that, it's up to you. We hold no responsibility whatsoever. If something happens to your DS, if it breaks something in that way you're trying to do something, or something happens whatsoever, we're not held responsible whatsoever. None of us. We wash our hands at this point. We just said the only thing we just said is there's methods. And that's it. Okay. With all that preamble and all that stuff said. Why don't we go on to the PlayStation 3, 4 era? Because this game actually came out for both systems. Came out first for the PlayStation 3, but the one that came here in the United States and the one that came for the PlayStation is actually the enhanced version. And this one is J-Star's Victory Versus. This is more of an arena fighter game, and it's all right. It has some interesting characters to say the least. It's not a huge roster like Jump Ultimate Stars, but you can start seeing the flaws in these anime fighting games, especially the arena fighters. And this game just suffers a lot through a lot of that. It's an anime arena fighting game, and if that description does not appeal to you because you've played these games before. Congratulations, it's the same damn thing.
That's a shame because I think that's like the greatest sin about those. Because in theory they're pretty good, but the problem is when they become so stale and they become just the same thing with a new package and they don't even add anything like that's worthwhile.
And if you're wondering,
It's
like
just,
only
it's
character in
depressing
this
when they do that.
in J Star's victory is Seiya. So yeah, why not? And actually, it's I find it interesting because it's like the first two games that we talked about, Famicom Jump and Jump Ultimate Stars, using the manga designs like highly. It's something that's very rare for them to use the manga designs. Here, he just flat out just use the anime design. Just he's wearing that weird helmet and everything. Me and Kamen Rider Furry have gone back and forth on what our thoughts on that design, but you know, if you like it, more power to you. That's not my thing. I like more the tiaras. Fight me.
I feel like the helmets make more sense for fighting. They don't necessarily look
I don't know.
better, but they make more sense.
Here's okay, just a little TV on that. Like the problem with that is like yes, they do make sense as protections, and if you're gonna be fighting people with superhuman abilities, they make complete sense. But the thing is that the manga establishes this, and it wasn't very well translated into the anime. There's a progression, and there's a reason for why the bronze clots are so bare bones, the original ones. It's because the idea is that they are the lowest rank of the fighters for Athena. And the higher the rank, the more protection they offer. And you can see that how the silver clots offer much more protection than the bronze clots, but they're still very bare bones compared to the gold clots. And then the gold clots are a proper full-fledged suit of armor that protects the entire body. There's that line of that line of progression that's also how they showcase how the bronze clots gain more power throughout the series. Like every time they get repaired, they evolve in one way or another. That's something that got lost in the anime because of how much protection the original bronze clots offered, and it even felt very weird because I remember when I was a child, some of my friends told me like that they prefer the B1s of the anime compared to the B2s, and one of the arguments was that they protect less than the original ones. Case in point, like those are the types of things that Bandai just thought, well, okay, to Bandai's credit, it did help quite a bit with the sales of the toys, which ended up helping with the popularity of the series. So it's kind of like, put it in a balance, take your pick.
And also, we missed out on a lot of the weirder designs, like that weird, like that when they got their claws resurrected the first time by Mu. They got that weird one with Seiya where he's got like the things on his side. It looks like he's got like earphones.
The Mega Man. The V2 in the manga is infamously called the Mega Man armor. Oh no, I think I broke him.
I used to just call it the Power Ranger armor, but that makes better. You just hit the nail right there. Jesus Christ. But yeah, going back to J Star's victory, like I said, the game, it's fine. It's a good anime. I would say a good anime fighter. It's a decent anime fighter. Like it's not something you want. Like it's like I said, this is starting to get to the point where it's like there's so many anime fighters out in the market, and this is just a drop in the bucket of like so many of those games, and that's I think like the worst part of it. It's like it does nothing to differentiate from one game to the other, and it's supposed to be something where it's like, oh, it's a big team up of all these characters that you enjoy. Like it has characters from One Piece, it has characters from Naruto, it has characters from Dragon Ball, and it has other characters that you may know too, like from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Yu Yu Hakusho. Saki, what's up?
You know what energy you're given right now, Ramses? Have you ever seen that episode of Family Guy where Brian goes out of his way to become friends with Quagmire, and Quagmire goes on like a rant about all the things he hates about?
No, but that turns out that's
Brian.
right.
Have you ever seen that episode? Because like he goes over, he's like, yeah, you try to sleep with your best friend's wife, and you do this and that, and you're so pretentious, and you think that you're an individual, but you follow the herd. But at the end of it, he goes, you know what? I could give all that. I could overlook all that if you weren't just so damn boring. It's like that's the vibe you're getting right now.
Like I said, because like it's because like you could tell you can tell. And you can see in the anime game market, like if you had a license and you had like a popular system like a PlayStation or an Xbox or a Nintendo system at that time, you're guaranteed a game at that point. And the problem was it's like it like around the mid 2010s, there were just so many there were just so many of these same types of games with so many licenses. It just kind of like it's like when you try to when you try to make a game like that in a market that's already kind of like saturated with that kind of thing, it's just it just comes off as not bad. It's more like I'm disappointed. We're gonna get to a bad game in a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's like also the novelty of it is that you can have like Goku versus Seiya
Goofy.
or Naruto versus whoever. But the thing is that like most people have their favorite anime that they want to spend money on, and chances are that anime already has a fighting game with all of your favorite characters, not just the poster child character. So there was a Naruto one. There's a
Dragon Ball FighterZ.
There's several JoJo's Bizarre Adventure ones that were out at the time. There's the Saint Seiya one too. Yeah, Dragon Ball had a ton of them. Like this not only suffered from the fact that like there were so many other similar games. There were already games out there with these characters in them plus more that because like I know that there's people out there that love a ton of anime, but most people are like Dragon Ball is my favorite or Naruto is my favorite or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, whatever. So why would you buy this like pared down version when you could have a game that has literally all of the characters from your favorite?
Well, in the case, here's the thing though. You actually said something in that rant. You actually you said something that was interesting. You said that there's games that have your favorite characters. Saint Seiya. Where are the games here in the United States? This is actually not. This actually came out in the United States. So where's the Saint Seiya games here in the United States? Well, there is one. But like I said, at the time there wasn't any. So it's like that's the only game. This is North Star. Where are those games where are those games? We didn't even get the Lost Paradise for the PS4 until like at least 5 years after this game came out. So you want to play Yakuza, pare down Yakuza with Fist of the North Star, you're not gonna have that for like the next couple of years. And then with like Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball, you had a lot of great games. Naruto had a lot of great games. Bleach had a lot of great games. One Piece had a lot of great games. JoJo had some good games. We can argue about that, but there are some better. As a matter of fact, if you want a better arena fighting game, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle is a way better arena fighting game. Oh my god! Okay.
The thing, it's like since he has so much potential for video games, like it could be done in several different styles and several different genres. But it just got stuck in Bandai's let's recycle the same game over and over again. And sadly, it does suffer from it ends up becoming stale. And as much as I do like Soldier Soul, it is very there's something about it. It's just like it's very slow. I think that's its biggest problem because it has many elements that are amazing. It has practically all the cast, or at least most of the cast that most people care for the characters of the series in total. But it's basically just the same game that came previously before with just a couple new characters, and the few additions that it does have that are really good don't really justify the game itself. And sadly, that's the last console game or the major AAA game that Bandai and Toei have decided to put on for the Saint Seiya franchise, and I don't see that changing anytime in the future, which is very sad because they could do a lot of things that are not even that would not require a big budget to make good, but until somebody makes a decision about that, we are stuck with.
So I mean, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Have any of you guys played? Any of you guys played Daystar's Victory?
I have seen gameplays of it, but I have never played it myself.
No, I haven't played it either. I'm just not. Like I said, I'm not a fighting game person.
I'm not selling it to you.
Really, well, I mean, like at the time, it didn't sound appealing to me either. Like, because there's some characters I like in it, but the characters that I liked in it for the most part, like except for like you said, Saint Seiya at the time, already had games out that were more fun. So
the disappointment continues. We move on to 2014 to 2019 with Jump Force.
So I don't know whose idea it was to do this, but so Jump Force kind of had like a quiet fizzle out towards the end. Like they announced that they were going to be just not supporting the game anymore. But I don't feel like it was widespread knowledge because a lot of these retailers like GameStop and Steam and other places were like heavily discounting the game like just weeks before it was about to shut down. And I just felt like that was kind of sleazy almost because like people were going to buy it, be excited, and then not have
Or if
spoilers.
you
Like,
get,
you can still play the base game
for example,
by
you have
yourself,
the game on
but
Steam,
like
you can find ways to do it via Parsec as well.
it felt sleazy that they were like trying to get the last like few dollars out of it there at the end of its life cycle. And I'm sure other games do it too, but this was something that I like specifically had always been tangentially interested in buying, and I saw that it was cheap and literally had it in my cart to check out on GameStop for
Fucking
like
hell, man.
I like 80% off. And I literally saw something on Facebook that was like, "Oh yeah, it's getting canceled in like 2 weeks." And so I was like,
have you watched or played anything of this game, Benjas?
I have watched quite a few gameplays of it. I was tempted to buy it just precisely because it had Seiya and Shiryu on it. I wanted to see if they might have been involved in the quote-unquote plot of that game, but I just, from what I saw, it just looks so. I don't know. It's weird. Like if you look at videos of it, it doesn't look that bad. But like when I actually got to test it because a friend actually bought it, I tried. He hadn't unlocked those characters yet, so I don't remember what characters I used, but I played it. And it was just the gameplay so weird. Like I don't doubt that there are people that genuinely like playing that game, but it wasn't for me. It didn't feel like a good game.
Yeah,
and I didn't enjoy playing
that's
it, so
kind
I
of the
didn't
same
bother to get
sentiment
it.
that a lot of people had with the game as well. You're not alone on that when a lot of critics really panned the game for being kind of like middle of the road. It's kind of the same complaints I had with the last game I had, J-Star's Victory. It's just it's that game, but put in a way more fancier package. It suffers the same things where it's an anime fighting game. If you want to play all these characters, they're in better games right now. And like the only reason why you would want to pick up this game is like, for example, is for like some of the novelty characters like Saint Seiya. Because he had died from Adventures of from Dragon Quest Dino Daiboken. Yeah, what?
The Death Note characters.
They're in NPCs.
Was it Death Note in it?
However, they're in Jump Ultimate Stars as assistants.
Dang.
I believe so.
Was Toriko in that one? I can't remember.
Oh no, Toriko was before that.
Toriko was always a fun one to see.
But Toriko was in J-Star's Victory.
I don't feel like
that's one of those series. That's like for a minute it was red hot and it just disappeared, and that's one of the series I kind of want to get into. But
yeah, and on top of it, again, this is not the fault of the game. This is more just like the state of how games are right now. I really hate the DLC model. And I hate that this game was really heavy with the DLC model too. I feel like I was always seeing on the Steam page that, oh, here comes, All Might from, My Hero Academia. You have to pay $10 to get him. And it's like, and again, that's not specifically this game or Bandai as a company. That's just kind of
it's the subscription model. They sell Fortnite and they sell like the popularity of Fortnite and people buying like the people buying like the what's it called, the battle passes, and they want to have like their own battle passes on their own game.
But at least Fortnite is free and you can enjoy the full game. Everything is cosmetic in that. This is charging you for specific characters with specific move sets when you've already spent potentially $60 on the game. It feels gross. I don't like it. Like I like cosmetic items, but if I don't have the money for it, if I don't have the disposable income for it when it comes to like Fortnite or Overwatch or something like that, I just don't get them. And it's it kind of sucks for a day or two. But eventually, I don't even think about it anymore because it's not something tangible.
Yeah, you're paying for a JPEG.
So it's right.
But I get you.
It's very frustrating, and I distinctly remember this game's DLC models though.
Yeah, and the worst part is like other games are actually way more generous with their season passes. Like for example, I think for like the amount you had to pay for all the characters to unlock in this game, I think you can get like at least 2 seasons worth of characters in Dragon Ball Fighters, and that's like 5 fighters each. So you're getting 10 fighters plus all the other, plus like any other thing, any other cosmetic things you can get for the same amount of time, for the same amount you can pay for like, I'm seeing like what, like 6 or 7 characters.
And I'm asking this because I didn't see any
Okay,
controversy
14
around
character.
this, but I know that this was the same era that this controversy happened. Was this one of those games that
No.
had the DLC characters on the disc?
No, they learned a
lesson. Okay, because I know that this was
everyone learned a really harsh lesson back in the PlayStation 3 era, keeping a lot of DLC stuff in disc. Yeah, thank you. That was
Thank you, Capcom.
Well, freaking Epic Games.
Like I said, like they've since learned their lesson, and that's why if you notice, like a lot of games now are like the base games like a certain amount, and then you have like additional stuff, and that's all the other characters that they're gonna be coming out like later and stuff like that. So unless you can like data mine, unless you want to like data mine or like find something else, yeah, it's just like that's how you would do it. But like no, this wasn't one of the ones that they data mined and they found like other characters in there. I believe what ended up happening though is like they did say like the data wasn't there, but the names were there. So technically the names were there, but like I said, that's like I think at least having the names there is not as bad as say having your entire data your entire roster there. I think just having the names, I'm a little bit more passing on that end.
Because at least it's not like the actual data of the playable thing that should be like you should get access to, then you shouldn't have to go through a paywall to get access to. It's just like the plans for what's to come, and
yeah,
it's still debatable, but at
about
least it's not outrageous.
Like I said, there's a lot of like there's not a whole lot, but it's kind of insane to think that Seiya was in 4 of these games right here. Any final thoughts on it, Benjas?
Yeah, regarding those particular of games, one thing that I'd like to say is that it's a shame that most of those didn't come officially here to the West. Okay, we've discussed how you can, quote unquote, get access to them. That's on each listener there, but not getting here, it's unfortunate in the sense that despite everything, it still shows that Seiya being put there puts him on a very good ground with all the other protagonists from different series, because I think that's one of the biggest problems that Saint Seiya has had, like in America. Like it hasn't gotten the exposure that it needs for audiences to get accustomed to the characters and therefore give an opportunity to the story. And something like the video games would have given that, but unfortunately the only one that he has appeared in is not particularly popular, and most people just tend to ignore the series. Like his inclusion being there, at least what I can say is at least he's there, even though the game is not good, and even though there are many things to criticize about that last era of games, and particularly of Force Jump, but at least he's there. So that still says something about the status of Seiya as a franchise, as a character to the Shueisha properties. So I'm happy with that. I suppose that one last mention that I don't think we can get too much into detail because I don't really know too much about it, but there was the Saint Seiya MMORPG that was developed and released in China.
But it's like, it was one of those things where it's like it was in beta for like 3-4 years, and then it came out, and then it immediately just died afterwards. They just published it and like via con Dios, like put it out there, and let it rot and let it rot. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure on what happened. I do know like what it was. They were doing the game since the early 2000s, and they released the game in 2016 and closed the game in 2017.
It did last for a long time, and as far as I know, it was very popular on China. The problem is that by the time that it officially was released in other territories, I think it was a little bit of too little too late. Not to mention that from what I hear, the official translations were quite bad. So it was, because I heard that it officially came out in Latin America. There was a Spanish version, but apparently the translations were terrible, and like it was more viable to actually just play a fan translation of the Chinese in the Chinese server. So it's one of those things in which like it wasn't handled well, and so it's there. Like it has very interesting, like it's a very interesting thing. I think we could probably try to dig a little bit more into its story, the history of that game on another time. but it's more of an anecdote than an actual playable experience. And yeah, sadly, I think it has already closed. I'd be lying if I said that I knew for sure. But yeah, it's not something that's viable in this.
Yeah, not only that, it's like
at the date of
like if you want a better
this.
MMO experience, people are gonna go to Final Fantasy 14. I'm sorry to say that. Like as someone that's been recently getting into Final Fantasy 14, it's like if you gave me the suboptimal Saint Seiya game and Final Fantasy 14, I'm going to Final Fantasy 14. I'm sorry. I love Saint Seiya now, but this is the better option. With that said, Kamen Rider Furry, your final thoughts on all these on all these team up games or final thoughts on like Saint Seiya games?
Not really on the team up games, just because I don't have a ton of personal experience. I'm just not a fighting game kind of gal. But I do have an update. I have stopped playing Saint Seiya Awakening because I also, no matter, kind of like you were talking about the MMOs, like even the power of Saint Seiya can't get me to enjoy gacha games. Like I tried real hard there for a while, guys. Like a solid like 2 or 3 months I tried. I even bought the pirate skin for Aldebaran because I really wanted it and never even ended up drawing Aldebaran. So I spent like $10 on this game for no reason. Yeah. Oh well, I guess. But it was fun, but it's just like most gacha games. You kind of get to that point where you have to start paying if you want to progress. Like the level caps and the challenges just get so impossible that it just becomes not fun anymore.
Yeah,
the free to play model. So I had to retire that one.
And you're not, and I don't blame you. Like those games are like designed to like suck your money, like hardcore. So like yeah, they're like the game might be generous, not be very generous with you at first, but afterwards it's like guess you're on your own afterwards. It's like
yeah, because you like as long as you were leveling, like when every time you leveled up, it gave you a pretty generous amount of stuff. But at a certain point, you'll get to where it takes you like a week or two to level up. So then the like in-game currency and the bonuses and everything just start coming or stop coming, and it just becomes stagnant. And that's the point that I got to with it. So sadly, I am without Saint Seiya gameplay yet again. But maybe
never give up hope. That's all I gotta say. Never ever give up hope on anything with Saint Seiya. Look what happened. Like for a minute, like we all thought it was all but over, but we got another season. The manga is available to read on the app. Who knows? Like maybe this might be the shot in the arm it needs. Who knows? Maybe when we talk about Saint Seiya video games again, we're gonna be talking about the Fortnite skins of Saint Seiya. I buy it. I'm playing it. I'll openly admit that.
I would buy them. I don't know how much I would use them because I like to wear my skins like my sexually exploited male skins. So I just don't.
And most likely they will. Most likely they know what sells. They know what sells. Oh my god! Oh my god! We gotta talk about that. It is in the episode notes right here, by the way. I do have here a note about that. Like Jesus Christ. So yeah, that was an interesting. We went all over the place on this discussion, but that's how things are here in the Saint Seiya Cosmocast. We go in tangents, but you know what? We do in a living matter. Even though I had to keep on wrangling us all the way back, but so yeah, that was an interesting discussion. Like I said, like we don't know when we're gonna come back to this discussion again. Maybe when we get some updates on the new games, maybe we can talk about the. Maybe you can talk about the stuff we can talk about more Saint Seiya video games and stuff like that. But pretty much we're going to be kind of in a circular like argument where it's like we're going to be arguing the same things we discussed in the last couple of episodes and stuff like that. We're just be repeating the same stuff from way back in when I was doing the solo episodes and whatnot. So, well, let's see what happens. Hopefully, like I said, we're Saint Seiya's in a good place right now. We can only get better from here. Speaking of getting better and getting better with time, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the CGI show. Let's talk about the last couple of episodes, just 9 through 14, 9 through 12 of this season of Saint Seiya. I have because I'm looking at Final Fantasy. I had Final Fantasy 14 here on my. I have here Final Fantasy 14. I was looking at the date of Final Fantasy 14. So I was looking for information when I was trying to like make. Did the Saint Seiya MMO game come out before Final Fantasy 14 or after Final Fantasy 14? Like, no, it can't. Final Fantasy 14 came out before it, so yeah, it makes perfect sense that it ate its lunch like totally.
Well, you also have to remember Final Fantasy 14.
Not even the first couple of years, like the first couple of months, and they're like, "Oh shit, we gotta fix this."
No, it was bad for a long
Yeah,
while.
I was like, but
because my friend
but
played it from day one.
I think it's been more. I
It was
think,
pretty bad
but
for a while.
I think it's been like a good year or so before, because like it was like that stuff was like pre-beta, like that was the stuff on beta, and then when they finally released it in Realm Reborn, that's when when he realized, because
that wasn't a beta.
exactly,
They
and they're
just
like, you know
completely
what?
trashed the game and started over and called it something. It wasn't a beta though. Like I promise you, like my friend was even there for like the final
Mhm.
countdown of it turning into Realm Reborn, where a bunch of people logged in to say goodbye. Like, yeah, it was. Anyway, we're talking about Saint Seiya today. I have something to say. I just want to preface this with I don't watch these episodes until literally the last minute because I am a massive procrastinator. So I had not watched episode 9 until literally today, was along with all the other ones. So when I say I was a mind reader and I'm going to take all the credit for it, and the last time we talked about these episodes, we were dealing with those stupid skeletons at the Virgo temple. And like it ended on a cliffhanger where Seiya was about to fight the final one because there was 3. One of them got Sean, one of them got Shiryu, and now Seiya has to take on the last one. And I said, this show has stupid episode pacings, and when they hit that 22-minute mark, they just end. I said something to the effect of, I bet you that this fight only takes up the first like 3 or 4 minutes of the next episode, and they could have tacked it on to the end of this episode to make a complete story for that episode. And you know what happened? We started the episode, he fights the skeleton for like 3 minutes, and then it completely goes on to a new story, like a new plot thread. And when I say I was irritated as all get out, I was so mad. Like as a whole, the series is greatly improved, but some issues. I can't talk today. But one of the issues that it's had from the very beginning is its really weird pacing and its really weird episode structure, where it just feels like they run out of time and so they stop. And we'll get to the end, but the end also sort of felt like that to an extent. But it just every episode just feels like, because I understand with season 1 there might have been a point in production where they thought this might be going to television, and so they wanted to keep it to the 22 episode structure. But by season 2, they had to have known that this was going to be streaming only. And when you're streaming, you're not restricted by those guidelines. If you need to add a couple of minutes to an episode, you can do that. I don't know why they keep cutting these episodes so weird, but it really was jarring. We start this episode with like a super fast fight between Seiya and the final skeleton. And then it immediately jumps to our Star Hill storyline, and it was weird, and it really bothered me. Like it put a weird taste in my mouth.
Refresh my memory. Did we see Seiya use the rolling crush before this episode?
Yes.
Yeah, he should have used it with Misty.
I can't remember if he used it with Misty, but I know he used it in the last time. The last gold. Who was the last gold saint that he fought?
Iodi.
Leo. He used it against Leo.
I must have been falling asleep at the wheel, because like I just realized, like I thought that was the first time he used it in these block of episodes, because that was like my only note. Because like you're right, it's just like they go to one thing to the other. I'm like, there's nothing really to note here. Like we spent literally the first 5 minutes with just doing this, and I'm like, okay, cool. And I wrote down on my notes, oh, Rolling Crest, good to see it. I'm like, and I'm like, I had to stop and realize, did we see it before?
And it also super annoyed me that they had 2 fake outs. Like Seiya attacks the skeleton once, and this big plume of smoke appears, and Seiya's like, I won, and then he didn't, and then the same thing happens a second time, and Seiya's like, surely I won this time, and it's like, okay, can you at least go look for bone?
At least I'll give him this much. I'll give him this much. My very first note I wrote down here is that Seiya. I said Seiya stopped using the same technique twice, and at least he beat his quote unquote boss. With using a different technique. Props to them for at least having some keeping sticking to landing on that. Any thoughts so far, Benjas?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's how to put it. Like I'll say my final thoughts on this episode later, but what I have to say regarding the skeletons is that I agree with. I think that I hadn't realized this before, but because I really haven't rewatched too much the episodes. Like the first season, I saw it like the episodes we were going to cover. I saw them in one sitting, and I've seen the episodes of season 2. I saw them as they were coming out, with the exception of the last one, which, believe it or not, I actually just watched today. But like Sunday that I watched the episode, and I hadn't really rewatched them. Like I just made my notes on the day, and I just left it like that. But I think that maybe I'm not too. I don't really pick up on these things too much, but I have heard it not only from Kamen, the fact of the pacing, but I do agree with him that there's something just weird and bizarre. The fact that it begins with the skeletons, because the cliffhangers in this show have been so bizarre. Like the pacing is something that's very strange. I think it's very poorly implemented. Like in some places it rushes, in some places it goes super slow. It's very strange. I think it's one of the main weaknesses that the show overall, both season 1 and 2, continue to have. And let's hope something that they improve for a theoretical season 3 that I do believe it's going to exist. But until confirmation comes, well, let's keep it hypothetical. I just hope they really work on their pacing, because yeah, it is very bizarre, and it feels like you waste a lot of time in some of these episodes. And okay, coming back to the skeletons, I think I don't mind the skeletons themselves. Like they are something that they appear in the story, in the original story. I don't mind them being filler. I just think that the filler presented here was not well done. That's my take on it.
They just did it because if I remember correctly, it was like tacked on to the end of episode 8, and this was tacked on to the beginning of episode 9. And I just feel like the full segment should have either been all in episode 8 or all in episode 9. Like it to split it up like that, especially with these being like, instead of being released in batches like season 1, these were released week to week. That's such a weird cutoff place, and it wasn't one of the Gold Saints, so it wasn't as thrilling or like nerve-wracking or anything like that. Like Seiya's already defeated what, like 2 Gold Saints at this point. A little skeleton isn't going to stop him. Like this was not a concern that I don't think anybody had. So that was just a really weird place to end it at. I don't know. Like if you look at Netflix shows, like the Netflix original shows, so, like some of the episodes might be 25 minutes, some of them might be 36 minutes, some of them might be 32 minutes. It's just however much time they needed to tell that part of the story. And I think that it just would have been more successful if they had done that here, even if that meant that like episode 8 was 25 minutes and episode 9 was 20 minutes. That it wouldn't have made that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things, and it would have made for a better viewing experience. But I've gone on about
fair
this
enough,
for
fair
too
enough.
long. That's my
So
soapbox.
we get to we cut to a scene afterwards where we still cut to Mu, Aldebaran, Junei, and Kiki. They're all going to Star Hill. And I wrote down here a note where it says there, the writers really hate the writers really hate Junei, because it feels like when some of the writing some of the writing they have for her, it just feels like, oh my god, what is going on here? Like I was watching them do these guys really hate her? Because for some reason I'm listening to like some of the stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so bad. And like some of the retorts, and I wrote down here too. Back to the writing of season 1.
I do have an opinion on what you just said. Like, it's weird because like when Junei was presented in this season, and when the idea of expanding her role was presented in the story, it made perfect sense. Like, she is a bronze saint that got sent away by her master to protect her. She comes back, she sees he's dead. She wants to get involved in this fight. Like that's amazing, and it starts very well. And they show her as a very determined individual, expanding on a character that, let's be honest, as much as I love the manga, Junei is barely a character in the original story. So like them trying to expand her role is something that I applaud and that I really enjoy the idea of, but the execution has been very bizarre because, as you said, it's like going back to writing for season 1, like because they make June here like the impression that she gives is that she's like a bratty, like one of those university brats that's like, oh my god, like, you know what I mean? It's like, why do you talk like that? Why do you behave like this? You're supposed to be a state of Athena. You were trained by what it's probably presented here, one of the best teachers that you could have had. Like, why are you behaving like this? I think it's a matter of them. Okay, they're trying to flesh out the character, but they're in this episode at least it fails. It doesn't land.
Well, we talked about this a little bit in either, I can't remember if it was the last episode we did about the movie or the last batch of these episodes that we did, but just about how we have to remember that these characters are like 14 and 15, like they're teenagers, they're young teenagers. So I think with that mindset, I don't think that she acts that weird. She's acting like a teenager. I can understand your point though that she did go through rigorous training that should have kind of hardened her a bit as a person. But I liked, I don't know, I liked her back and forth with Kiki. I thought that it made the show feel a little bit lighter. I just like seeing her on my screen. I think her design is amazing. Maybe I'm just willing to overlook some of that a bit, but I felt like she was acting like a teenager for the most part, and that Moo and Aldebaran and Marin for the most part really were having to like wrangle her in and be like, look, we're still in a very serious situation. I thought that it was interesting, and it made for a more diverse group of characters. I can understand that that's not the glimpses that we saw earlier in the season of her, or in the original, the glimpses that we saw of her, that wasn't really her personality. But I didn't mind it. I appreciated that
So
there's
yeah,
a bunch of
I
different
do
character
agree. It's
types,
like
I
they have
guess.
like with the banter between Kiki and Janae. It feels more like it feels like more like a brother and sister kind of thing. So I'll give you that much.
Right.
But it does feel like there are better ways to handle this, and I felt like maybe because like the shadow of season 1 still looms, and I kind of wish that they didn't really have to invoke that shadow, but. Hey, so it didn't work for me. But it seems you guys have a better opinion, so I'm not gonna argue. You guys 2 against 1. I'm definitely gonna lose this fight. So you know what? Let's move on.
Wait. Ramses is on, or Ramses. You're Ramses. Oh my God, Benjas is on your
Oh,
side. I was the one by myself saying I liked it.
I don't like how June was portrayed in this episode.
Yeah, I
Like,
was the one on the
I
island
need
by
coffee.
myself. But anyway, like basically what happens is they all have to fight like mirrors of themselves. Well, I say all, with the exception of one person, but
Well,
we'll
no,
get to that person in a
before
moment.
that, they
But
actually
it
we
was
cut to
it's just
we
it was
actually
kind
cut to the Bronze Saints getting to the temple, and I wrote down here. Cool. They went to a Windows 98 screensaver.
of
And then secondly, I wrote down. Secondly, I wrote down when
oh
we got to see the rest of the temple. Aesthetically,
that's
this reminds me a lot of Legend of the Sanctuary. Wait a
that
minute.
that's episode 10. That's not episode 9. The episode 9 is all Star Hill.
Yeah, they're on that cave,
why-
and that's when after they
then why
enter,
do
they
I-
get
then why do I
separated,
have
and
this-
each has like their vision of
Then
something.
what was I referencing?
I don't know. I have a note specifically towards the end of episode 9 that asks if Seiya is okay, because we haven't seen him in a while.
Maybe I was looking at Star Hill and I thought that looked like a Windows 98 screensaver. You know what? I gotta take better notes.
It might have been. It was pretty generic. It looked eerily similar to a lot of the backgrounds that we had seen in season 1.
Okay,
like,
so yeah,
there was
because
probably some
you're right, and
reused
you're right,
assets
because I
there
wrote
that
down the
cut
next
down
note
on some
when
costs.
we get to see the evil versions of like Moo and Aldebaran. It's like, why did they put goatees in the evil Moo? That's a Star Trek reference.
I just when the Moo fight, the movie Moo fight, was the most boring fight in the whole show.
Okay,
Like,
now I
in
know.
a show
Now I know.
that's had
Now I know
some
what I was
really
referencing.
quick
Why
fights that
I
have been
said all
so
this.
interesting.
When they go into the mirror world, when they start fighting these bad guys, that's when I say, okay, this looks like a Windows 98 screensaver. And then afterwards I say, this technically reminds me of Legend of the Sanctuary, because aesthetically where they're fighting at reminds me a lot of where they were in that movie. Okay, now
Yeah,
I can take good notes, people. I can take good notes, people.
well, the fight between Moo and Shadow Moo, or whatever, like Evil Moo or Mirror Moo, whatever you want to call it, it was so boring. And I feel like psychokinesis is just something that could be really cool, and I've seen it be really cool because I've played Scarlet Nexus, which is probably my top 3 favorite video games of all time at this point. But the main characters, no matter if you pick the female or the male in that, they have psychokinesis, and the battling is so dynamic and cool, of just like throwing objects around mixed in with like some physical combat and stuff. And they tried to do that, but all it was like Evil Moo throwing boulders at Good Moo, and Good Moo just trying to defensively block it for like 10 minutes, and there's the fight. It was disappointing, because I was like, yay, we finally get to see Moo kick some ass, and then he just kind of stood there, I guess.
It was It was going back to the fights of season one of like it lacks it lacks a dynamic sense of movement. It lacks intensity. It lacks like yeah. It was very, as you said. It wasn't only just boring. It was just like you felt that you were wasting time just watching this because it's just like, oh, I'm gonna throw this at you, and like no, like some rocks. Like really, that's your biggest threat against the Gold Saint? Some rocks? Especially this bothers me quite a bit because it reminded me like this is like a very poorly executed scene from one of the newer manga that one of the prequel mangas that got released in this decade by Kurumada, in which we see how Mu is training and how Shion trains him. And it's actually very interesting to see that they are using telekinesis in his training. Shion literally throws giant rocks at small little kid-ass Mu, and there's one rock that he's not able to destroy with his telekinesis that would have killed him had Shion not stopped himself and destroyed that rock. And he even responds to him like idiot, like if that rock had hit you would be dead. It's like, oh, so sorry, master. Like it reminded me of that, but done so bad.
Okay, so I will agree with you guys where it's like I felt kind of bad, but I will say this in its defense. It's interesting to see that we get to see stuff like the crystal wall ability and all that stuff being used this early because we don't get to see it that much until like Hades.
Yeah, because Mu doesn't actually fight, or he doesn't actually involve himself in a fight until Hades. So I am not against him doing stuff.
Yeah, again,
this early.
I'm not
it's
gonna,
just the execution wasn't good.
This could have gone a lot worse. I mean, this is a lot worse than a lot of other stuff. This could have been a lot better, I should say. Like we can do this route could have been a lot better. But I'm willing to and it's like one of those things where it's like I'll give you a C- on the fact that at least you're showing now that there's more to Mu than just him just repairing armor and him having those abilities with him and knowing those abilities that we only get to see later on in the actual series. We get to see it this early on. Could it be executed a lot better? Yeah, most definitely. But it's good to see this early.
Well, I mentioned that Aldebaran is fighting Shadow Aldebaran. But before that fight starts, Marin has to face her trial. And when I say I'm getting so sick of them being incredibly ham-fisted with the storyline, like I thought I was sick of it before. I really did.
I know exactly where you're gonna go. Kamen Rider Furry, you go first. Benjas, you go next. I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you two go. I'm not gonna say anything. You two have the floor. Just be polite to each other. You guys, when you guys are done, just wave me back in.
Why are we doing this? Why? Like, either because, like I said before, either they're gonna pull the rug out underneath the fans, and she actually is Seiya's sister in this incarnation, which would be kind of interesting. But then they've basically told you by that point, especially with this episode, because basically what happens is Marin's quote trial is it shows her an image of what we can assume is a younger version of her, like crying because she can't find Seiya.
I don't know what to think about this. It's like the showrunners are driving so hard she's Seika, well, Patricia in the show angle so hard, but like I don't know how to feel about this. If they really decide to make Marin Seiya's sister, I don't know how to feel about that because in story it's inconsistent with what ends up happening at the end, and it's a huge impediment for the Hades saga. Like the fact Seika is a vital character for the conclusion of the story in the sense of what she manages to make Seiya achieve, and making her Marin, it just would ruin that. I don't know how they would get away with that, and it also doesn't. I don't think that they should. I don't know if they're actually going to end up doing that because they've said multiple times in many interviews, and they've said this to a lot of people, that they're trying now to stick much more closely to the original story and to the original source material. So are they just doing a fake out for the sake of trying to create a mystery of intrigue? Because they're gonna fail if that's the case as well. So I don't. Well, this is a bad idea. Any way you want to put it.
It's one of two things that in regards to this particular instance with Marin's quote trial being her facing her younger self, potentially her younger self. It could be that because they started setting up this plot, they started hammering this plot in the first season, So it could be that they've already gotten too far and they feel like they can't backtrack now, and she is going to end up being Seiya's sister. Or they did say, and this is kind of, I believe, going into episode 10 a little bit, because I think the storyline does I think the storyline does tie into the next few episodes too, and I can't remember what episode they say it in, but basically Star Hill, they say that this is the domain of the Pope, and he kind of creates like he's the only one that has any real power there, and he creates everything. So we can assume that he probably created the illusions too, and maybe he thinks that Seika, or that Marin is Seika or Patricia, and that's why he did that, because Marin just like walks through it like it's nothing. So that could imply that it didn't bother her whatsoever because the facts weren't right, and that Saga or the Pope or whoever didn't have all the correct information, and also was like just trying to come up with something for her. But I don't know. But she's also been at Sanctuary forever, so you would think that the Pope would know that, because they've also said that Shion's been dead for decades. So I don't know at this point. I've been trying to rack my brain to make it make sense. Hopefully, spoiler alert: we don't get a conclusion to this in this season, because they're banking on getting a season 3, which we're pretty sure, like we said before, we're pretty sure we're getting season 3. So this is probably going to be something that resolves later, hopefully. But it was handled so messy, so messy, especially when we get to the end of the season.
I agree. I was actually thinking though, and jumping a little bit to the next episode.
Yeah,
we did. I know. Actually, at the end of this episode, jumping a little bit forward, we see that the apparition that comes for June is not herself, but it is that of her master Daedalus. So, like, it's not necessary that it has to be something strictly connected with the person. Like, maybe Mary had an interaction with Seika / Patricia in the past, and that's why she appears here. But that's now that I can think about it, and when you mention it, she does just move on forward without paying attention to it. So it still leaves like room for like it creates confusion, because in the end we're arguing about this. But I do think that I hope that it ends up being not the case. I just hope that Seika, Seiya's sister, is not Marin. Like, I wouldn't be happy with that idea.
Okay, well before
Right,
that,
we add back
before
in
that,
for episode 10.
a few notes I want to bring up really quick here. I was eating salad. Also too, it's like I made my like. You guys have a stronger opinion on this. If you wondering what my thought is, it's a bad idea what they're doing. But you guys made a compelling argument regardless, especially Kamen Rider Furry. Where it's like maybe maybe the Pope got the information wrong. Who knows? But like I said, I'm more in Benjas society. I was like, if you're going to continue this, I sure as hell hope you have like a. I sure as hell hope that you have a way out of this when we get to like later stuff. If you're gonna go to the later. But like I said, like I know you guys have a stronger opinion on this. That's why I let you guys go. So but there's a few things here. So yeah, like I said, you mentioned that that Janae, when she encounters her illusion, it's not herself. It's actually Daedalus. And I have a question to Benjas. Like he's like a walking encyclopedia of Saint Seiya.
Yeah.
Was that ability? Is that ability that he has the safest demolition hammer? Is that new to him?
Yes, it is. It's the first technique that we officially know from him, because in the manga it's never shown. They never show him fighting. Daedalus doesn't actually fight. We just see him like in the past with Shun. We see him through Shun's memories, and we get a panel, like it's not a literal panel. It's one of those interpretatory panels where it's like, oh, the Pisces saint killed his master, but we don't really. It's more like just an impactful scene, not an actual scene that occurred in world. So we never really saw him fight. So we don't really have any actual official techniques to his name. This is the first time that a technique has been made.
Also,
for him, so this is unique
here,
to the CGI
actually,
show.
You know what? I'm
That's
gonna
cool.
cross this out because like this note here, the last couple of episodes, because I realized it says here. I realized they never animated a scene with Janae putting her cloth on, but like no, they did show it the last couple of episodes. So I'm wrong.
Yeah, the flashback at the start of episode 10, which those episodes weren't that long ago, so I don't know if it was necessary or not, but it just this show just has like a flashback fetish. Like it's whether we've seen it or not, they're gonna show it to you. Flashback here, flashback there. that one time when they had a flashback and a flashback.
I did say, however, and this is another thing that maybe Benjas can also clarify as well. This is the first time too we also get to see Junei use an ability, right? Okay.
Named ability, yes, because she does attack Sean both in the original anime and in the manga. She attacks him with her whip, but she never like gels a technique. So this technique is also unique to her. And I do believe that I don't remember where I saw this. I think one of the people that spread information about Saint Seiya in Spanish mentioned something about the name of the technique being like an homage to like a magazine that Kurumada like gave an interview at one point. I'm not sure about that. Don't quote me on that. But I think that the name of her technique is of relevance somehow to the history of Saint Seiya. So it was a nice detail on behalf of the producers of the show. But
I do know for a fact
I
that
don't
Junei,
have the exact information about
she's
that.
called Junei because like there's a magazine that's like more LGBTQ plus in Japan that's more focused on that called Junei. So that's where they got her. That's where they got her actual name. But I don't know about her actual technique.
Yeah, the Kurumada did as an homage. I'm okay. I don't have the. I'm not entirely certain.
That's
so
fair enough.
It's just speculation on my part.
Again, you're a walking encyclopedia, and sometimes like I read the manga, but I'm like, did she or did they? But okay, so yeah, going back. But one last thing before we before you go to episode 10 is again. This is what I was referencing when they got to the Virgo house. I said, and now they're in Switzerland.
Yeah, for like 5 seconds, and then they get right to the temple. Like
now we go to episode 10.
But the same thing. So I really feel like the skeletons, and I promise I'll stop bringing them up eventually. But I feel like the skeletons started this snowball of scenes being cliffhangers that shouldn't be cliffhangers, because the end of episode 9, Junei, she finds Daedalus is her like mirror person that she has to face off against, and it ends there. So we did kind of get in episode 10 already, but the quote the fight between the two of them only lasts a couple minutes, so that could have easily been the end of episode 9, and then episode 10. It's just no. The
reason why I said "oh my god" is because I thought that was the end of episode 10. That's why. Like I'm actually agreeing with you. I actually agree with you on this. I'm not saying "oh my god" he's out again. No, it's more like "oh my god" I was completely wrong.
because it's just the first few minutes, because we have episode 10 starts with a real quick flashback of just who Daedalus is, because we only had seen him one time really in the show so far, so it did that flashback was kind of necessary, I guess, because even I was struggling to remember if they had actually shown him in the show yet or not, because I remembered Benjas being excited that this was the first time he was being represented in animation, so I was looking out for him. But I guess the scene before was just kind of a quick one, because that was when what we were talking about earlier, when Junei's character decides that she wants to join the fight at Sanctuary because he dies. So, like, obviously she's surprised to see him alive. He, like, gives her a bitch slap across the room, and then they have a quick fight. Like, a quick, just, like, couple-minute fight. And then it ends with him saying that he's actually really proud of her, which is also really weird because, like, the other two fights that we saw were just straight-up evil clones, but this one, like, encouraged her as she was defeated. It's like... that part was weird, because these are supposed to be like apparitions that the Pope has summoned to try to deter them from getting to the top of Star Hill. But this one was nice to her at the end. It's like, I was really proud of you the whole time. And then we get to the Virgo house. It's like, that could have been on episode 9. That would have made episode 9 feel much more complete and worth it, because the entirety of episode 9 was, well, not the entirety, but the majority of episode 9 was about Junei's growth. And we didn't get to see the payoff of that until several minutes into episode 10. Right. Anyway, I promise I'll stop complaining about it.
No. I actually want to take up from. I actually want to. I want to take on from that point, because I agree completely with you. Because, okay, I've said that I don't mind the skeletons as being filler, but I do mind them in the sense of the time as well as the budget that was used for the skeletons. And I'm gonna. It goes with this episode as well. That time, and they could have used, instead of putting the skeletons, they could have focused completely on Junei on one episode and leave one more episode for what is about to come right after we finish this, which is the fight with Shaka. Okay, I'm jumping a little bit here, but the fight with Shaka only lasts half of this episode and half of the next
Mhm.
episode. It's basically just one episode. Again, it's okay. I'm jumping a little bit. I think that the fight with Shaka was fine, but the fight with Shaka is arguably one of the most iconic, one of the most beloved, one of the most intense, one of the most epic and most beloved fights and moments in the entire franchise by many people. And I genuinely think that it was a shooting. They shot themselves on the foot by cutting that off and making it so quick. They could have expanded and have at least 2 full episodes or 2.5 episodes for that fight, and develop it as much as they could to make it even better. Because again, I'm jumping a little bit, but I don't think that it is a bad fight, but it could have been so much more better. And it does, and I do agree with you on that, because in the end, the skeletons end up being something that, okay, I know that sometimes they have to do that for the sake of, there are decisions that there's a reason why they do these things, but I cannot see a logical one for this. They could have taken that out completely and used the budget and used the time for to expand the fight with Shaka. So, and as well as to give a better pacing and a better focus on June. So it was a decision that ends up impacting the final part of the season that had been going on quite strong up until now. But these last 2 episodes again show some of the weaknesses that the development team for this series have, and unfortunately still carry on. And it's an unfortunate thing in my eyes.
I kind of feel the same way, but in the opposite direction. Like, I wish that they would have made the skeletons, keep the skeletons, whatever. I'm done complaining about the skeletons, I promise. But I wish they just would have made the fight longer to be these last 3 episodes and ended the series with the Shaka fight instead of having the last episode tacked in. Because, not to get too far ahead of what we're doing, but the last episode, not a whole lot happens. It feels like they just had 12 episodes they had to fill, and they just dumped a bunch of like wrap up stuff in that. Where I think that if they had ended the fight here, it would be, or if they ended the season with this fight, number one, we would have, Nero, sacrificing himself, which would have been a really like heartbreaking moment to end on, like a really extreme moment to end on. But also, you would leave you not knowing if Hyoga was going to leave. Like, if this was your first time watching the show, I mean, like if this is your first entryway into the show, it would leave you not knowing if Hyoga was going to. They could have just had like a quick clip of them all running to the next temple and showing that Hyoga's there in that intense moment of like them finding, is he going to be alive or not, and then we have to wait till next season to find out. I think it would have been so much more impactful if they, because you said, this is one of the most iconic fights in the whole show. They should have made this the focus of the last 3 episodes, or at least the last 2.5 episodes, and ended it there. Because I just feel like not only does making it shorter take away from it, but also like not giving it the respect and ending the season there took away from it too, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I completely
It's like
understand what you mean,
they
and
should
I
have
agree
more.
with
They should have
most of
given
your
us more
points.
time with the character and actually had more time with Shaka to like to you have to actually give the fight an actual kind of weight to it.
Like, am I misremembering, or did originally the like Shiryu put up a little bit more of a fight before Phoenix Icky came back? Am I like gaslighting myself?
No, you're not gaslighting yourself. I think here's the thing, like in how to put it, it's not that he put more of a fight in the original anime. It's more that it was more flashy, because in the end he also tries to like do one attack on Shaka, and that's when he tries to do the Shoryuha, and that's when like Shaka ends up catching him. But they attacked him previously to that. Oh no, yeah, that's why you have that in mind. In the original anime, they attack Shaka, then he counters without he counters them. They try to attack again, because I remember that Shiryu gets sent flying into a wall, and then he falls off, and then that's when I need to rewatch the episode, but I think it was a bit longer in the original anime. That's what I mean.
I feel like it was a little bit more like shock, like a little bit more of a dire situation by the time Iki showed up in the anime. Is what I feel like.
it was more, it was very much more flashy because yes, after Shaka just stops Shiryu, he kind of just sends them flying, and like Shiryu and Seiya got knocked off immediately, and then Sean tries, I am very putting a lot of emphasis in tries to attack Shaka to no avail, and then he just okay, I'm jumping a little bit there, but okay, that's when she fails, and then Ikki comes back.
I do want to say though, before we full on take on the fight, it was really funny to hear Shiryu call him an old man, because it just made me think of the future is now, old man. That's what that made me think of. I was like, did he just call Shaka an old man? Like Shaka, I mean, he is old, but he doesn't look old. Like he looks like, you know, somebody in their 20s. I guess to a 15-year-old that is an old man though.
Okay, going into that point a little bit, because once they reach the Virgo Temple, they do an homage to the anime where they enter, and it's kind of like this heavenly paradise-esque, like beautiful field, like that's reminiscent of what happened in the original anime, where they enter like a very beautiful Elysium-esque valley, and then they continue to run out a little bit until they get to Shaka. Like that happens here as well. I don't know why, but there's something about the execution here that just doesn't. I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but I don't like it. I think that it was too fast. Maybe it was executed too fast. Why I didn't like it, but okay, it's an homage to the anime. It's fine. They get to hear, and here's one detail exclusive to this series that I really like: Shiryu trying to be sensible and trying to be what's the word? It eluded me, but trying to negotiate the permission to actually be able to pass on through. Like okay, there's no need to be hot-headed here. Let's try to talk with this person and try to reason with him. I love that he tried to reason with the Gold Saint prior to the fighting starting. And then I also like how Seiya, being the hot-headed fool that he is, he's like, I'll take your silence as a yes, and then he tries to run off, and that's when Shaka stops him. I like that very much.
Seiya learned today that it's not consenting unless you hear the word yes. But no, like I did see the irony though, Benjas, because I was thinking the same thing. I did see the irony that in a series where the Gold Saints have an arguably much stronger foundation to want to stop the Bronze Saints, it's funny that this is the time that Shiryu decides to rationalize with somebody, as opposed to the original series, where there's almost no reason for the Gold Saints to be fighting, where they should have rationalized with them a little bit more in that one, but they didn't. Yeah, I guess it was just the times, but the Gold Saints have a much better reason for wanting Athena to be dead in this one versus the original anime, and I think it's funny that we get them trying to rationalize with them more so in this one, where there's really not much to rationalize, to be honest with you. Because just to refresh everybody's memory, Athena still has no fucking idea how she's going to save the future. She just doesn't want to die, and the Bronze Saints don't want her to die either. So, whatever.
Yeah, that's when the prophecy aspect of this whole show comes back and bites it in its ass, unfortunately.
And it's going to keep doing that until it's over, unfortunately.
All right, so
they've committed.
So we get to the actual fight here. With that, and we actually kind of like go to the actual fight. Pretty much, it's like Shaka tries to stop the rest of the tries to stop the rest of the Bronze Saints, and they are unsuccessful at it. Sean tries to take him on, but it's unsuccessful at all. And then Ikki appears. One of the things that just stood out my mind, like the first thing I wrote down, I had to stop everything, and I had to write this down, was he says, how dare you attack my friends? I'm like, oh, so now you're our friends now?
Okay, go on. I'll add to that.
We spent the last season, right? You spent the last season a lone wolf, and now all of a sudden they're friends. What the f? What the fuck?
Yeah, and that, I think that is where the weakness of brushing over.
Oh, there's another one later that brushing over it made me kind of confused on something else that we get to much later.
Yeah, but as far as this, because I mean, it was pretty par for the course in the original anime for Ikki to just not be there for large chunks of time.
Yeah.
He's like the sixth Power Ranger, basically. Like, he just comes in when he's needed. But in the Silver Saint arc, there was a few instances, because I remember we were like shocked to see them whenever we were reviewing them, where Ikki like showed that he cared about his friends, and Athena even like intervened, and like that's just how he communicates, and he wants to be her friend, and like she was kind of translating his like anger and explaining it to everybody. But we didn't get that here, so it was super jarring when he was like, those are my friends. It's like, we spent half a season trying to kill you and then another half a season not even seeing you, so what do you mean?
Yeah, it makes no sense here. It makes zero sense, especially because of how things left off. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I mean, him coming back would have been completely fine if it had been in the context of that like sibling bond with Sean. Like he just has, even though like they've been at odds before, they're still family. But that's not the approach they went with. They went with the friendship.
Not just that. I mean, there could have been other reasons why he could have come back as well. I mean, they do mention later, like they both of them did encounter each other at the first, like beforehand. And you could have worked that into their angle, but no.
That was my favorite scene in the whole show, though, where Shaka like gives him this lecture and then says, "But forget everything you've heard here today." That was my favorite scene.
I was just gonna say, that particular thing I didn't mind because it is again faithful to how it goes on in the manga, and that comes from the first season even. But here's the thing: like the thing about Ikki caring about these people makes zero sense in this season, because let's think back. Okay, in the original anime, he becomes part of the group, and after a while he leaves, but he basically forms a relation with these characters, and it's through a series of episodes. It wasn't like in 5 episodes then he leaves. No, it was like 10 or 15 episodes, I think, and in which he was part of the group, and then he decides to leave. So there's a reason for why he cared.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, don't worry, like I like leaving, but I can trust you guys with the silver saint, with the steel saints. Anyways,
yeah, like in the but in this series, like he literally, and I remember that I said this exactly, like he just fucks off. In the original season, in the first season, he just decides to fuck off. He doesn't give a reason. He doesn't seem like, even despite that you could argue that the reason that he decides to go to Cannon Island, to the volcano, to heal himself is because of the injuries that might have befallen him when the volcano erupted and it collapsed on itself. It's never specified, and it's very difficult to infer that, considering that when we see him again in season 1, he's completely and perfectly fine. So it makes zero sense, and I mentioned this in the first block of episodes for this season. It makes zero sense that he's resting and recuperating in that island. But okay, he did that. He interrupted Gemini Saint from sending Sean to the next to the another dimension, and now that he senses the danger, he appears. It's not that he appears, that's what he does, and that's how it happens in the original story as in the anime, but it is him declaring these people to be his friends. It's like, why? It might be something very minor, but when you put all these pieces together and you try to make it a cohesive thing, I'm sorry, but it's gonna come back and bite you in the ass, and it does
like
in this moment.
You're preaching to the choir at this point, man. It's like we all kind of agree, and that caught me off guard. I'm like, that was a part, like that was the most jarring out of all these things, and I guess that's why I kind of like that's why I kind of like gave a. That's why I and for me, when we get to our final thoughts on the entire season, is that like we're starting to see a lot of these things start creeping up just a little bit. The season 1 isms are starting to creep up here, but not as bad as it was the last time. But this seems to be like one of those season 1 things where it's like they're doing it for the sake of it because it was done in the anime or in the original comic.
There's one thing that I have to mention. I think it's important for this. And okay, clarification. This is not to throw shade at the man, nor is it with the intention of making any negative aspects towards his self, like his person. Like, I don't know the person himself, but we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Yujin-san is still the story editor of season 2. Many people wrongly assumed that he had stopped being involved in this series due to the controversies from this first season. He hasn't. He's still involved, and he's still the story editor. He has been credited since episode 1 of Battle for Sanctuary, and it hasn't been something that's worth mentioning previously to this. And I think that there are different writers for each episode, but in the end, he's still somebody that's involved in the production. Okay, not only him. Like, again, there's a full team that make the decisions for how the show goes, and I'm going to say this to each and every single person involved in this who makes the decisions. But I mentioned this because, unfortunately, all those aspects have shown their face in this last batch of episodes. And there is a reason for that. Most of the staff is still the same. Most of the people that are writing the story, it's still the same. And apparently they're still making some of these mistakes. Hopefully, as we have seen, because they have corrected many things for this new season, hopefully this will take they will take all of this as constructive criticism to make an even better next season, theoretically speaking, that I'm sure will happen. But I'm doing it with that intention, not to put shade on the man. Like,
Right.
but I say all of this because, again, many of those aspects come back and bite these 2 episodes in the ass. And I'm going to put the lemon on the wound with what is probably the most criticizable part of the fight with Shaka, which is Sean being conscious and just tied up and being useless in the entire fight. There was no reason whatsoever for her to be conscious for this fight. She attributed nothing. She accomplished nothing until the moment that the character she's standing in for is supposed to. Like, until that moment, she doesn't do anything. So her being conscious previous to all of that adds nothing of value. Why make the decision of having her conscious and just tied up to it brings the uncomfortable argument of, are they trying to just portray the female character in a better light, but in the end shooting themselves in the foot for it? Because I think that it makes her look much worse. Because not only is she conscious, she doesn't do anything. She's useless in this scene and in the next episode as well. Like, she didn't. Had she been unconscious, like the character was supposed to be in the original part, it makes more sense for Iki to come and rescue them. But this decision ends up making the character look worse than what it should have been.
I agree and disagree.
Go on.
And why I disagree, like I agree because for most of the things you said, that it does make Sean look a lot weaker than and that's been one of the complaints about Saint Seiya since its incarnation, is that Shun is always being rescued by Iki, doesn't get a lot of time to shine on his own, and that curse kind of was rectified a little bit here. Sean is I feel like a much more independent character outside of Iki than Shun is until much later in the show. In the early, especially in the episodes that we were watching prior to this, like, Shun just never shuts the hell up about Iki, like, talks about it all the time. So I feel like that is an improvement here. But I felt like the moment when Sean was ready to sacrifice her life, because I think on some level she knew that, because she doesn't have her 7th sense yet, or did she awaken that with Jiminy?
Yeah, she did awaken it for a moment when she was attacking Jiminy's thing.
But I don't know. But I feel like on some level she knew she'd probably die if she fought one-on-one with Shaka. But she was willing to do it. But then, Nero told her, no, I've got this. You have to trust me. And I felt that moment of her trusting him and her putting her complete faith in him was very important. And I felt like it hit really hard for developing their familial relationship that hasn't really been a strong focal point of the show. So while I will say that, yes, she was useless for about 90% of the fight, I feel like that one moment, which I think was technically in episode 11, but episode
I was going to say, why don't we,
like,
if we're going to discuss these episodes, why don't we put these two together? Because, like, they're pretty much like tied to the hip at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but there's just a point where, because Shaka takes away one by one all of Iki's senses, and so Sean is like, okay, there's nobody left. She was the only one left awake and alive, well, awake, I guess, and able to fight. And so she was going to do it, but then, Nero was like, no, you have to trust me. And that combined with the flashback / possible not flashback, just like inside of Iki's head, where he was holding on to Sean as a baby and, walking along the spiked stone path and his feet were bleeding and he wasn't going to give up on her. I feel like that's what we really needed. We actually really needed it back in season 1, to be honest with you. But I'm glad that because that was a really good scene. Shun and Iki in the original is they're very complicated, but because they've got a complicated, like, family history, but they've always had such intense love for each other, and we haven't seen that yet. In the first season, there was a little bit where, like, Sean was excited to see her brother, but, like, the second he decided he's evil, Sean's like, I'm gonna stab him in his fucking face. and there no looking back. And so I felt like this was super important, and I think that's why they did it like this. So while it was frustrating for most of episode 9 most of episode 10 and the beginning of episode 11 to just see her literally chained to a wall forever, not doing anything and not even contributing anything, I think that the payoff of those couple of scenes where we finally get that brother sister bond established and solidified made it worth it.
Go for it.
May I add something to that?
Sure.
Because I completely agree with you there. I actually I agree with all the points that you've just made. However, here's the thing, and going back to my original point, because I agree with you. Like, it does become a great moment for them, for their sibling relationship to flourish and for that trust to happen. But here's the thing: that scene is but when that happens, it's when in the original story that is supposed to happen. So that should have happened regardless of Sean being awake or not. Like, that's the moment. Like, after Ikki gets deprived of his 5 senses, that's when Shun, and in here Sean, awaken, and then they stop Shaka from giving the final blow, and that's when Shun is about to fight Shaka, but Ikki then tells him, "This is my fight. Let me fight. Trust in me." And that's when that happens. So that moment doesn't get disturbed. It also happens here, and I agree. It's a very well done moment, and the execution here was very good for that. But again, returning to my point, then what was the point of Sean being awake prior to that? That's the thing. That
just because it's been a long time since I've watched this block of episodes for the original, and I'm purposely not watching them because I know that we're going to have to watch them relatively soon for future episodes of this podcast. How does Shun wake up in that moment? Because I don't remember.
When Shaka, after Shaka delivers the blow of taking away the 5th sense from Ikki, I don't remember what sense it was. I think it was sight. Well, anyway, once he removes his 5 senses. Oh, okay, yeah. Once he removes that, he's about to deliver the final blow. That's when Shun awakens and uses his chain to stop the final blow from happening. And that's when he says, "I'm going to fight you instead of my brother." That's when he awakens.
Okay. So Shun just wakes up.
Yeah.
So I feel like in a storytelling sense, it don't come for me, hardcore fans, but I feel like in a storytelling sense, it makes more sense for Shun to have been awake there and struggling to get free and struggling to. I know that she didn't struggle, and that's on the part of the storytelling of the writing team. But I feel like it makes more sense for her to be witnessing this and get a surge of strength whenever like her brother is about to die, than just conveniently wake up at that moment and do it. I feel like does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you mean. I think here I'll leave it at this. So I'll stop complaining about this. I'll just say this: the execution for this could have been much better. For example,
she could have been not discrediting that at all. It could have been much better.
Yeah, just to say a couple of examples. She could have been unconscious on the first part and maybe to start to awaking as the fight is progressing, but being very weak to like, what's going on? For then to recover to a point in which she can interfere. Or she could have been awake the entire time, but maybe have Shaka give a very powerful attack that renders her almost on the verge of death, so that it would make sense for her that even if she's conscious, to be weak enough not to be able to resist. That's the point. Okay, it was a decision, but the execution for that decision was not good. Okay, that's how I'm gonna end my statement.
That she had been tied there, witnessing all these horrors that's happening to her brother, and then I wish that had been the moment where she like fully gained control of her 7th sense, and that's how she got freed. Because her getting free was like a mystery because her own chains were turned against her, and it didn't very well explain how she got free and was able to do that. So again, it's not perfect by any means, but I wish that they would have shown her with like the 7th sense glowing to like show us that she's learned how to tap into it, because it wasn't clear in the Gemini part if she just did it out of desperation, kind of like Seiya did the first time, or if she can actually control it. So that would have been a nice touch. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think either version was perfect. I think that a hybrid of the two would have been the best, but the attention to details is where this.
I think it has to do more with the fact that like they don't have that much time to explain it, even though they like you just said, it's like it's a made for internet TV show. So it's like it's TV show. So it's like they're not selling it. I mean, I could say I know why they're doing it. Why they're only constraining themselves to like 22 minutes because like they want to sell this show eventually to like to networks down the road. But but you can do. There are better ways to handle this, and there should have been a little bit more time for them to flesh out that battle a little bit more because I think that was like you're right because it's just them they heard all of a sudden being free like that they could have been a little bit more impactful just like how it was in the original anime, but I guess because of time reasons or because or time constraints or whatever, they just said fuck it, like they have to get rid of something, so let's get rid of this aspect.
And this is where the show should have ended. Season 2 should have ended, like point blank.
Yeah, I think okay. We jumped it quite a bit because I think that this point needed to be like we needed to say this because it's probably the most controversial aspect to this these last few episodes on how Sean's character was handled. So okay, moving past that and returning a little bit, we actually haven't talked about the fight itself with between Shaka and Ikki, and I think that for the most part it was very well done. Minor a few things. I'm not going to go into detail about this because I'm no expert, but I did hear quite a very harsh criticism on part of somebody that has experience in animation, and I didn't notice this until he said this. The scene where Shaka is giving Ikki the nightmare, where he's a young boy carrying Sean, and then his feet. You remember that part when she becomes heavy all of a sudden, and he almost drops her. Apparently, like if you look closely, you don't see any tension in the arms of Ikki. Yeah, like he said that very specific example, and I'm sure there are more. So I couldn't like pinpoint them, and I'm gonna be honest, my eye is not trained that well to notice these things. But and like for him to be that specialized in the field, he wasn't able to enjoy that. But I'm bringing this up to say something. Unfortunately, again, the budget or the animation style or the production team that they have to make this show in CGI. I don't know which, if any, or all those factors have to do with this, but unfortunately, the show does still suffer a bit from animation, and it's very unfortunate because again, it ends up affecting the final product. Okay, maybe maybe 99% of or 98% of people are not gonna notice those things, but in the end, it's like the little details that sum up that unfortunately make it difficult to praise it, especially when it had been going very strong up until now. Like it's a shame where certain parts flatter, and that again coming back to they could have caught stuff that was irrelevant to the previous episodes to give more time for this fight to happen. But despite that, I think that for the most part, it's a very good fight, and most of the visuals and the fight and the dynamic between Shaka and Ikki is very
I only
well
have
executed.
one complaint
What do you guys think
about the fight? And that's at the very very end of the fight itself. It's like it was great how it ended. It was great and spectacular how the fight ended. If you don't know how the fight ends, it just he grabs Ikki grabs Shaka. He just lets his cosmos explode onto him. He unleashing his seventh sense by essentially just getting rid of all of his senses and focusing everything to like his heart, and he exploded, and that was a really cool scene. But like I couldn't escape this when I saw this because I don't know why my monkey brain thought of this. And my notes say, here, the way he exploded makes it seems like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon because it just it explodes and there's this black soot and there's smoke coming out. I'm expecting like Ikki or Shaka to have a sign going like "ouch" on the fight afterwards. Yeah, or
boom.
I don't know why I thought that. Maybe because I gotta stop watching these old cartoons sometimes. But like for my brain just went to that when I saw it because it's just like it like I don't know why. And the worst part is like it's a great fight overall. Like there's I have some like complaints, but they're more like nitpicks more than anything. Like, and it's just making like dumb observations. Like when they go to Purgatory, I said, "Oh yeah, just ask Shiryu. He knows what's going on here in Purgatory." And I said I wrote down because like there are a few of these hells that they were describing when Shaka was taking through all the hells. I was like, I don't know about some of these hells. I don't know if they're real or not.
Well, I was really surprised. Like maybe it was said, and I just never like sunk the information into me that the brain is the sixth sense. I guess I kind of always assumed it was like not to reference Family Guy twice in one episode, but I always thought it was like that Family Guy episode where Peter's like talking about World War V, and Lois is like, "No, Peter, there has to be a World War III and IV." And he's like, "No, no, you don't get it. It's just so massive that it just skips over the other two." And I was like, I guess that was the situation in my brain, what I was thinking of. But apparently, the mind is the sixth sense, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that I know that
And what
information
was
now.
it here? Also an interesting thing is like there is one thing that was interesting other than that weird animation error when as they're as Iki's carrying Shun, we get to see a little bit of that pendant, something that we don't we that's it's something that we
Ah,
never like. Again,
yeah.
this is one of the things where it's like something that like something that gets played later, but it never gets mentioned till like later. But it's good to see it this early. So I did
Mhm.
find that really, like I said, there's some things that yeah we can look at and like, okay, this needs improvement, but I do appreciate them doing stuff that happens later on in the series, like bringing, like I said, like showing Mu being a little bit more resourceful with his abilities and showing how he fights and stuff like that, and showing off that pendant was a good idea because like it's because like, I literally if I remember correctly, and I guess can correct me on this, that thing doesn't play a role to like Hades. So showing it off this early is actually a huge plus.
Yes, it's actually quite consistent because again, the whole Shun being the host for Hades was basically something that Kurumada improvised. He has stated that in his writing style, he's always trying to think of like he basically uses all his ideas for the chapters he publishes as he's going along. So when he thinks of new ideas of what he can do to surprise the readers or the viewers, that's when he comes up with stuff that might be like pulled
Yeah,
out of out of a magician's head, if you will. Like you may like it, you may not like it. That's entirely up to interpretation of each person reading his works. But that's how he operates. So Shun being Hades' host, it's something that he literally improvised for that part of the story. So that was never something that existed prior to that. That's why Dependent never gets CPD mentioned until then. But it's now knowledge that as the story has finished and as we know, etc., them adding that as a detail, even from like here, it's a
hmm
very good thing
yeah.
to do because it
So
gives
I
it
mean,
consistency.
and that does that complete the episode, or do we have more episode afterward?
Well, episode 11 basically
Okay.
finishes right after Iki
Yeah,
dies, and they decide to go move on to the next temple.
Mm.
Like,
because Iki burns himself alive with Shaka, which also kind of shocked me a little bit because the trajectory that they were going, and my conspiracy theory of them trying to make all of the well, minus Death Mask, who has historically always been just kind of a piece of crap. Uh, but I had my theory, if you remember, that they were trying to show all of these gold saints in the best light possible, and for him to still like get burnt up and potentially forever be gone.
Yeah.
Not really, but you know what I mean. Like in the
yeah,
minds of the first time viewer, like I guess my theory wasn't correct because like he didn't have any real sort of redemption. He just they straight up followed the regular path
Yeah,
for
because
it. So I was a
the
little
reason
bit
why I was confused
surprised
is
there.
like I thought that was one of the things where it's like I wrote all these notes all kind of all together and I didn't put any breaks. So and that also tells you like that if you put these notes like this in this way, it's like I get confused as to where the episode ends and where the episode starts. So I gotta make sure it's like some of these I gotta see some of these notes are correct because yeah, because like I kind of wrote these like on the fly without putting like a break on them. So yeah, so they get to this all it's all bad and all that stuff. So they get to the Libra house and they find Hyoga like the frozen like a Gordon's fisherman fish stick.
Yeah, and then my most favorite scene in Saint Seiya becomes my least favorite scene, but we'll get to that in a minute. Basically, they do the whole Doko
Uh
has 12 weapons. It's like two sets of 6 weapons basically, and only one of the weapons can penetrate the ice and successfully save Magnus Hyoga from dying basically. And if they choose the wrong one, then he's going to die. And I'm just like I just
Well,
tell him which one. Doko. What the
I give him
hell?
this much. They did say something. He did say something beforehand before he revealed the cloth that like this is as much as I can interfere. I'm pretty sure it's like either the sanctuaries know what's going on or he knows that something's up, and that's why like that's as much as he can give him without like telling him everything, and then like him has to like and then they figure out like, oh, he's been helping the bronze saints and stuff like that. So I'll give him that. But I will say this. In my notes here, when they show off when he starts showing off the weapons, he's just doing these weird. He's doing like he breaks his armor right on cue, like just like hey, he's got to sell his body because apparently that's what he does. And he says that you're wasting time showing off your sick Bruce Lee moves. Because he's just like doing these moves and describing the weapons like. Dude, just pick the weapon that because like the answer. Just grab it and just get on with it. You're on a schedule here, and you're just wasting time just showing off, dude. Come on.
Okay, so I have a question, and this is more me not being able to remember because we watched because the CGI show covered a lot of the same ground that we also covered watching the original anime, and I know this scene exists in the original anime, and I thought it existed in the CGI show, but I might be misremembering. But shouldn't Shiryu already know that Doko is the Libra Knight? Like, because it didn't Deathmask show up?
They didn't have that.
Deathmask was like, oh, I can't take. Like when Moo appeared,
he's like,
I can't take on. They didn't have that.
Like they did do a scene where Deathmask does confront Doko, and that's where Moo appears to help him out. That's what happens with the same way, but Shiryu's not there. It happens like no.
Yeah, as you're remembering that Shiryu's not there because they're in the desert right after season 1 ended. So in this series, Shiryu doesn't find that out until here. And in the original anime as well as in the manga, Shiryu learns that Doko is the Libra Saint when that mask appears.
Okay, I was just mixing them up. So that makes more sense because when Shiryu was shocked, I was like, isn't this like old info for you? But no, that makes more sense now. Okay, it's because we watched that set of episodes and then the CGI set of episodes.
Brain rots. I understand.
So I get them a little bit mixed up when I'm remembering.
Anyways, keep going. You were also saying something, Benjas?
Saint Seiya brain rot. This is finally doing it.
Yes, I was just going to say that I have to be okay. Here's the thing: it's not an uncommon thing in the Saint Seiya universe for saints to communicate with each other through telepathy at large distances, like across multiple countries and stuff like that. That's normal. But I am not a fan of the astral apparition of Doko here. Like that's a detail that they decided to add here. It's not bad. Also, I'm not saying that it was a bad decision per se. I just don't like it. I don't think that it looked well.
They ask, "Who's that?" And I wrote down here, "It's Yoda, Seiya."
It's just another old man.
Yeah, so it's like I totally agree with you. Like the way he appeared, it's like, oh God, like I say a Jedi. It's just like one of those Jedi operation things. Like, aren't they supposed to do that when they're dead? Anyway, that's their Star Wars moment right there. Good.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Star Wars, sorry. But like so to get back to where we were at though, so Shiryu has to choose one weapon of these 12, but actually just really 6 weapons because there's 2 of each, to decide how he's going to destroy this block of ice and save Kyoga. Magnum Dom, whatever. I have Magnum Dong written every time. I'm sorry, I couldn't stop myself. But he settles on the sword, but they don't give any explanation. Even if he had just said that like my Cosmo is speaking to me or this is my gut reaction, say anything. But he just picks up the sword and attacks it with no explanation. And I'm just like, I wish they would have had like some kind of dialogue in there. I know this again is super nitpicky, but I wish there would have been something in there that justified him picking the sword over the other weapons. Because they made such a big deal about saints not using weapons and how they have to be specifically blessed by Athena to be able to handle weapons in fights. So it's a big deal that, and he probably most likely doesn't have a lot of experience with weapons because he was trained in a traditional like saint manner. So what drew him to the sword? Even if they had just said, this makes the most sense to cut ice with, that would have satisfied me enough in the moment. But the fact that he just silently picks up the sword, it decides to just throw a 1 in 6 dice roll at it.
Yeah,
don't know.
and I believe in
It
the
bothered me a lot.
actual manga and the anime. They actually go more in depth as to why he chose the sword. And
Yeah.
No,
okay, never
actually,
mind.
no. He just
I'm a big
picks it
fat
and
liar.
decides to use it.
Oh, really? I could have sworn in the anime they had at least a line about it.
He doesn't mention why he picks the sword, if I recall correctly. I think he just like, I will use this one with your permission, my master. Like, okay, that actually reminded me of a point that I want to say. I'm also kind of disappointed because the scene where the Libra weapons get, as well as the Libra cloth gets introduced, was very, even though it was also filler, I'm going to be completely honest, it was just filler in the original anime, but at the very least it was very cool. And the music, the scene, the way that they present them, Shiryu holding all of them and showcasing them was really cool. And here it just gets like, oh, it's this one, and oh, it's always like, oh my god.
But that goes to one of my biggest problems. It's like you're on a time limit. You can't be showing off your sick ass Bruce Lee moves, dude. You got when time is money. You just choose something and pray to God it works.
That's true.
And I don't know. I feel like I know that I've already said this, but I feel like this would have made a good season 3 episode 1 episode instead of a finale episode.
I agree with you completely, and I have a very strong complaint to make about something that happens in this episode regarding the pacing, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, because we shift immediately from, well, not immediately. So they get Hyoga out of the ice. They feel like he's dead, and then Shun. One part that I really did like though is they kind of updated how you talk to people in 2022 versus in the 80s and 90s, because it's a lot less focused on macho culture now. And I understand that Sean is also a girl in this version, but the fact that they had that extra part that's like, you can stay here and grieve as long as you need to, because Sean just lost one of their good friends and their brother and is in a very emotional state, and so they just stay here as long as you need to grieve, but we've got it, like, we have to keep going because we agreed, even if it was just one of us that reaches the end, somebody has to reach the end. So they keep going, and I thought that was a nice touch to it, just in just the way that they handled it.
Apparently people didn't like that. Apparently,
that particular scene, it's funny because I heard all the controversy prior to me watching the episode. I was like, how was they executed then? Because a lot of people I was more offended by the stuff
that you were talking about, Ben, about Sean being still awake during the whole entire battle and not doing anything about it. Then this is way more reasonable than that.
Yeah, I think it was blown out of proportion. I do agree with one of the points made regarding how it was executed here, but not to the extent of seeing it as a bad thing necessarily. I don't want to add to that, so I'll just say here, for the execution of this particular show with this particular character, because I've said it again and I'll say it again, to me, this character is not, cannot be, and will never be Andromeda Shun. This is the character they decided to use as a proxy for that character in this show called Andromeda Shun. So they're two different characters in my mind. And for what I've seen in this show, for this character, I don't think that it was like the execution, okay, might have been the best, which wasn't terrible either. It was just like, it was a choice that they decided to make of a character feeling bad about, because I did like the way they try to justify it within the context of this specific show. She feels bad because she thought that she abandoned Hyoga in the Gemini Temple and she just lost Iki, so I understand her feeling that way, and in the end she does decide to act. So I'm not saying that it was a good decision. I'm just saying that it was a choice they decided to make for here, and I don't mind it in the way that it was presented here. That's all I'll say on the matter.
It felt more organic than a lot of the other decisions that they've made, original decisions that they made. It felt like it made sense in the moment, unlike some of the other story decisions that they made with this show.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
We go to Star Hill for like 5 seconds?
I have two very strong complaints, and okay, go on first, and then I'll say, because one is very minor, but it's something that I'll showcase with visual evidence to you why this bothers me quite a bit. Go on first, you guys.
So this is where they address. They finally let you know that when in Star Hill, like, the Pope has complete control and feels like she knows who's taken over as the Pope. And I think this is also where they found Shion's dead body, and apparently he's just been stuck.
I wrote down here, it's an interesting take to connecting the dots to Shion's death as this early as well. Again, this goes back to the whole point where it's like it's good to see stuff that we only figure out later on through like Hades being played out this early in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
first thing that I need to complain quite heavily about, because this talks quite a bit about the writing decisions for the show. Because it's again one of those things in which it's not the idea but the execution and the details that can sink or float a ship, right? Are you really going to tell me that I'm supposed to believe that Shion's body just was sitting there dead for over 13 years without any issue whatsoever, but the moment 5 people magically decide to appear there, then that's when the body decides to fall down on the floor?
Yeah.
Like 13 years sitting down and now it falls down? Okay, it might be something very stupid to complain about, but here's the reason why I'm doing it. It's again, attention to the details and the execution of ideas. If they had just entered the house and find the dead body of the Pope on the floor, they would have gotten the exact same result as to what they were trying to achieve without it being nonsensical. But I'm picking on this because again, it's like the sum of these little details that amass to being unable to forgive some of those minor things that some people might say that's just irrelevant. Why would you fixate on that? Because I'm adding that to the other pile of stuff that has been piling up until now that unfortunately is gonna make me not look in such a positive light overall the second season as I might have, that they maybe handled this better. And that goes for a lot of things. That's why I'm picking on this particular detail that's completely minor and insignificant, but it does talk about the writing process for this show. Sorry, I killed the mood. No. So they find the body of the dead Pope then.
Sure. I feel like I've been talking a lot this episode, so I was making sure Ramses didn't have anything to chime in there. I completely agree. Like that part didn't hit me as hard. Like it didn't
impact you as much as it did with Benjas.
Yeah, it didn't impact me because that's such a trope that's been in anime and for like ever, that the skeleton decides to fall apart when the main character walks through the door or whatever, and it's been there for thousands of years as this completed skeleton, but like the main character glances in its direction and it crumbles. Like I've seen that 1,000 times, so I guess it just didn't bother me. But what you're talking about all these like little small details that they're not paying attention to adding up, it really does affect how much you enjoy a show, because we're at the end of the second season. This is the final episode. There's just, while this season was much better, there was still a lot of the same problems, and I feel like people saw a lot of the broader strokes that they made to improve the series, which did help significantly, but they still are falling flat on a lot of these smaller details, and they're also stumbling a lot with connecting the massive plot changes that they made to the more traditional plot that they're trying to follow now. They're having a hard time meshing those two worlds basically that they created. So I completely understand, and it is totally valid to be frustrated by these smaller parts, because they've made such a great effort, and it's like been this big production for them. They're, if you think of it in like a reality TV storyline, like they're having their like redemption arc where fans are starting to come back around to loving them, and they were the antagonists for season 1, the writers were, but now everybody loves them, but they haven't improved enough for it to be the caliber of where the show deserves to be. So what you're saying is completely valid. Like all these little things add up so quickly, and it's something that like seasoned storyboard people and seasoned writers and things like that should know.
Yeah, and like I guess like again, I'm gonna keep my thoughts till the very end, because like the thing is like I have like you guys are pretty much hitting up all my points here, and the worst part is like it didn't really bother me that much, those small little details. But I think everything kind of came ahead at this last episode. I think like all those little things start to add up, and when those little things start to add up like drastically, then it starts becoming more noticeable. And at first, I was a little bit more tolerable towards it. Now I'm a little bit more like now it becomes a little bit more noticeable. And I feel like that was like one of their biggest with the series overall. But like I said, I'll leave that for the final thoughts, and because we do have a few more last minute things we need to discuss here. That they find out that Shion is like, they find his dead body, it collapses, and then the Pope attacks all of them, and then like Marin, she pushes oh no, first things first is Aldebaran and Mu, they get crushed, quote unquote. I think they are most likely alive. They get crushed by a boulder somewhere, so I guess Mu teleported him somewhere else. And then as the Pope was attacking him with a mysterious attack that looks sort of like the attack that the Gemini Saint has, they're making no illusion.
I
Yes, he
think you
does.
were trying to
No,
say that he attacks him with a
I'm doing
Genki
this
Dama.
is like I have no control over my screen right now. But anyways, yeah, he attacks him with something he attacks him with something, and then what ends up happening is that what ends up happening is that Marion pushes him out of the way, and then like we're cut to a few minutes later, and he's all like, and June's like, hey, what happened? And they repeat the same thing that just happened before. But I do like this. I did write down here. It's like the balls on Marion to go to just attack, just to attack the Pope. Like,
yeah, I did like that as well. That
she knows he's a fraud, and she says she knows who he is. Like in the last episode, she said, "I know who is pretending to be who the Pope." So she's the only one who's figured it out. Which, to be fair, it's a lot less ham-fisted in this in this iteration than it was in the original. Because by God, if the anime couldn't go 10 minutes without reminding you that Gemini is going to be revealed to be the Pope. But yeah, that I like that she was so headfirst, and I think that because I'm seeing more notes here, and I hate to go back to like beat a dead horse again, but this is kind of where I got the impression, because so the Pope like retaliates and knocks her over, and like it looks like she might be dead, but I'm sure she's not. But like her mask falls off and her face is obscured. And then that's when I remembered that this iteration doesn't make females wear a mask. So Marin has always chosen to wear a mask. So that's where my theory of the Pope showing her a young Patricia crying about Seiya as her like challenge before. That's where I was thinking that maybe the Pope thinks, or at least at the time thought, that she was Patricia because she's the only one that wears a mask, really. And maybe it's kind of implied that nobody really knows who she is all that well. So maybe the Gemini Saint legitimately just assumed, because of the similar backgrounds and the similar hair, that is Seiya's sister. Because Seiya's sister, if you remember, was also abducted by people from Sanctuary.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the show. So maybe the Gemini Saint didn't have all the information and thought that really was Seiya's sister. That's where my brain started moving, was when it had her face obscured, because this being the final episode, if they were going that route, would have been the perfect moment for them to either tell us that she is or isn't Patricia, and they chose not to do that, which makes me still hold out the hope that they're not going to make her Patricia, because I don't want her to be. But that's kind of where my theory came in, is when that moment happened and she got knocked over. But I will say that the most egregious thing that this show does is have the balls to start another major fight in the show, knowing that they have like 3 minutes left of screen time.
Yes.
What the hell?
Actually, two fights.
I was actually surprised and actually angry about
2 fights at the end of the episode with 3 minutes left. Yeah.
2?
Oh yeah, because of Cerberus. I forgot about Cerberus.
Oh yeah,
so
that's right.
Afterward,
I almost forgot about that part. Actually,
we
cut back to Athena. We cut to Sayori, Sienna, if you will, and Tatsumi, and then it's those three scenes that came by earlier, and they were making fun of her and everything, and Sayori was able to like use her Cosmos to like wave them off. This time they came prepared, and I wrote down, "Wait, didn't you die in season 1? And it brought Cerberus Dante back." I'm like,
yeah, that was so weird. Like, didn't he die? Like, apparently he didn't die then, and he's alone. So fuck Elrica Capella then.
Oh shit, the Jumper Saints, they're back. Apparently they remembered how, but like now I'm like, how did you guys figure this out? Where were you guys hanging out all this time?
Well, the last time we saw them was when
Black
all
Saint
hell
tournament.
was breaking loose with the Black Saints, the guy that was controlling the Black Saints with his like attack helicopters attacking Athena's compound where the tournament was taking place. That's the last time we saw them,
Yeah, but
and
remember,
nobody's even shown any concern as to where they are.
no,
Not even
no.
Athena.
Yeah, but here's the thing: like in the context of this show, remember, like they lose and they're like, yeah, we're just gonna go fuck off. I really believe
Oh, that's
this
right.
girl
That's right.
she believes herself to be a goddess or something. It's like they willingly go off, but now they're back, like as they were supposed to be when that stupid sitcom funny thing got inserted into Iodia's fight when it should have never been done. But okay, here they are now, and they're giving them a proper challenge, a Silver Saint. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, you're right. The pacing, man, the pacing. Why put two fights that are about to begin at the end of one episode?
So guess what?
At the end of
We got to wait like
season.
6 to 8 months before we can get a
And
from that one.
And I hate this very much because okay, here disclaimer: I am very biased towards this. I am a Scorpio, and Milo is my favorite Gold Saint. Sue me. And his fight is, but okay. Outside of that, his fight against the Bronze Saints and then against Hyoga are arguably also one of the best fights in the original animation. So the fact that okay, it was a small part of the beginning of that fight, but having introduced that here instead of developing it fully like it was in the original anime, it leaves me bothered. Like I'm not angry, but I'm upset. Like I'm upset that they decided to like introduce this in the beginning and cut it short instead of allowing it to flow naturally.
And again, that dead horse is just gonna get beat some more because because if this had been season 3 episode 1, I would have forgiven the fact that they didn't explain why the other Bronze Saints are there. You know, because and the reason I say that is because it makes sense not to put all your cards at the table at the same time. But the fact that they came back with no explanation and then the season ends really bothers me because like did Sanctuary come after them for breaking the rules and they realized that they need to find Sayori? Did she come to them, and say we need your help with her Cosmo like she's done to the Core 5? Like why are they there? They like there's it in the did they even show up in the original? I'm trying to remember.
They do show up in the original, but the way that it was done is like this happens precisely when the fight against Sayori is taking place, and the random soldiers come to try and kill Saori. Tatsumi tries to fend them off, but they're way too many for him, and that's when they appear to defend Athena. But that happens in that same part. They attack and they defeat the foot soldiers, and then Tatsumi asks them, "Where the hell have you been?" And that's when they give the explanation that Athena gave apparently off screen. Athena gave them permission to go back to their training grounds to train again with their masters because of the losses that they faced during the Galaxian Wars. It has an explanation in the anime and in the manga. I hope that they're going to give that explanation here as well. But again, it doesn't make sense in the context of what was shown in season 1.
And then the movie, it was like they had to board another flight, so they arrived late or something like that. It was something stupid, but at least there was an explanation. But my point is that doing that in the finale versus doing that at the premiere is completely different vibes, and I can completely understand. I do like the bit where we don't know if Mu, Aldebaran, and Marin are alive or not. I like that being a season cliffhanger because that makes me excited to watch more and to watch next season to see if they're alive, which I'm sure they are because they're major characters. But I'm excited to see what they do with that and how they make that work. But starting a whole new plot line in the last 5 minutes, I can't. This show, I literally just I turned off the TV and I went and I just started doing dishes because I was just so freaking frustrated with how the show was working out.
But yeah, I mean, in the other fight that happens is we get to the Scorpio house and the fight begins. And Seiya, I wrote down here, yeah, you forget that Seiya has plot armor because he hits him and then Milo's like, why are you still up? I'm like, he has plot armor. God damn it, you should know this by now. And I wrote down just because like it ends with
Like,
it ends with like Seiya rushing at Milo, and I wrote down what a lame ending to that what a lame point to end this season.
I have a question before we get to our final thoughts. And this also could potentially pertain to the original. So each time Seiya uses his seventh sense, all of these gold saints are really shocked. Like Aldebaran was shocked. Obviously, that's the first time it happened. Leo was shocked, and now Milo is getting shocked by it, by how he can use the seventh sense. But like all the time throughout the show, even in this show, like they say stuff like, "Oh, I can sense a powerful Cosmo," or "I can sense a blaze of Cosmo that came out of nowhere," or something like that. So wouldn't they have been able to sense that somebody tapped into the seventh sense and then therefore not be shocked when they see Seiya using it?
Uh, Theoretically, yes, you're right, but here's the thing: like, if you pay, like, it's never explicitly stated, but it's a the way that it works is the reason why there are ranks within the saints is not only because of the cloth that they are wearing, and to discriminate, but it also shows the level of dominance they have over the Cosmo. The Gold Saints are the only saints out of all the 88 Saints of Athena that can dominate fully, and it's wrongly believed that they're the only ones that can tap into the seventh sense, which is the essence of Cosmo, which is the most powerful essence of it, and that's what allows them to dominate and be as powerful as they are. That's why all the Gold Saints always get surprised when a Bronze Saint is capable of rising their Cosmo to that level, because in their arrogance, they believe that this should not be theoretically possible.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. It annoys me that that all the time throughout the show they talk about sensing like a powerful Cosmo that just blazed real suddenly, but they're shocked. I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here, but yeah, the ending was basically Seiya survives a direct hit from the Scarlet Needle and decides to go and punch Milo, and that's the end. Like I'm so glad that, again, there's been no official announcement for a season 3, but there's been much more conversation going than there was between season 1 and season 2. So it's the fandom is feeling pretty safe in that we're getting a season 3. Like there's been people from the production team talking about still working even right now. So no official announcement has been made as far as I know of, but we're probably going to get a season 3. But just think that if they didn't and that's where the show ended, what a horrible place to stop. Like even if you knew you weren't going to be able to finish the show, like what a terrible ending.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Here it's not so much that what was presented was bad. It was the way that it is paced and the way that the episode is glued together. It's very poorly done, and that's a writing issue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can get to our final thoughts here. And if anyone, why don't we start off with you, Kamen Rider Furry? Why don't you give your final thoughts? In general, let's go for the entire season. Like it's all gonna come together right here.
This season was vastly improved over season 1. I don't know of anybody that is gonna go against saying that. It still has a lot of problems, but I found myself not dreading watching the show, despite probably complaining just about as much as I did before. And I don't know if that's more of a just me really, really enjoying this story arc, and I personally love alternate retellings, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that I just am enjoying seeing somebody else's interpretation of this. But I for some reason I just enjoyed this season more. It felt like it had more heart. It felt like it had more to say than the original, in a positive manner, I guess, because the first season had a lot to say. I don't mean, when I say original, I meant to say season 1. Sorry. Season 2 felt like it had more to say than season 1 in ways that are going to be impactful in a positive way, and it was a good improvement. It just it didn't click in my head basically until Benjas said that the writing team is still there. The person that they blamed for season 1 is still there, and if you look close enough, you can see it. You can see it in the writing, you can see it in the pacing, you can see it in the character development. it's all, a lot of the problems haven't gone away. So if the core, if what you didn't like about the show was how much they changed from the original, then you're gonna really like season 2 because they really go back to the manga and the anime. They kind of flip flop back, as we've kind of talked about, between which they're fully adapting, which they're ignoring. But if what annoyed you was just the inconsistencies and the shoddy writing, I don't know if season 2 is going to be enough for that kind of person. And that's kind of where I'm at with it, because there's so much that I like. I like them expanding June's role, even if it wasn't in the best way. I still like that she's getting more screen time. I like that they're like I said, I really like them finally having Sean embrace that familial bond with Iki that hasn't been really present since like the first 3 seconds that she saw Iki in season 1. And there's just a lot of positive things to say about it, but it's so many minor things that just add up that if I think about it too much, my enjoyment level goes really far down. So they've just still got a lot of way to go as far as telling a solid story. Like they've gone from telling a bad story with a lot of plot holes to telling a fairly good story with a lot of plot holes. So it's improvement, but is it enough? I honestly
Ben, has any final thoughts on the entire season?
Yeah. Okay. When even when we were talking about season 1, I kept praising what was happening in the first block of episodes. When we were doing those episodes, the first block of episodes of season 2 were going on, and I was very hopeful for what was to come because it was doing such a great job of, like, it was a high that was very, very high, like because it completely turned around. Now that the entire season has unfolded, I can say without a single ounce in my mind is that it is definitely a great improvement, and it's still a good show to watch overall. Maybe the gripes or the reasons why I get so intense in particularly in this batch of last episodes is because it does show its weaknesses very much at the end, and it's unfortunate because it was going so strong in the beginning, and then it falters and it falters again by the end, which is a shame. But again, it still shows that the team did improve, that they did listen to criticism, and that they're willing to work harder. I just hope, and that's my hope for the next season, if it comes, that I'm sure it will, that they learn from this season as well, that they also take the criticisms that have been done about this season in good faith as constructive criticism, so that they can improve and deliver a better product next time. That's what I'm hoping for, and I hope that does come to happen. Overall, this season is still pretty strong. I liked it. That's something I cannot say about the previous season. I made a comparison, or I think I made the analogy when we were discussing the last batch of the season 1 episodes, that it was basically that it was a plane that crashed and burned it like instantly, like a 180 completely, from being somewhat decent to completely destroying itself. This is not the case in this one. This is just merely they unfortunately tripped somewhere down the line, but it was just a trip that they can stand up and recover from. And I hope that's going to be the case for the next one. Overall, a good season. I would definitely recommend it. I just hope that they can improve on those weaknesses that they still have. And I do have one final gripe that unfortunately has been present for both season 1 and 2. Again, I don't want to be disrespectful to the man himself, but Yoshihiro Ike's music has just been basically non-existent in this series, and that needs to change. It cannot remain the same way that it has. The one of the things that is most iconic about Saint Seiya overall is its music. You don't have to copy Seiji Yokoyama, but you do have to respect the spirit of what was done for the series and try to evolve from that. You cannot do the generic stuff that we've been listening to, that I cannot remember a single melody from this show overall. And I hope that changes, because it's worrisome that he's also going to be the composer for the movie.
Yeah, I will agree on that. It's like, like Saint Seiya, and you went to a concert with you featured a lot of the Seiji Yokoyama music, and his stuff is extremely iconic. Like, you can recognize Saint Seiya. As a matter of fact, when we get to something that we're gonna talk about, like at the very end, when Kamen Rider Furry is talking about what when he's promoting and stuff, I found out something. The anime that we both watched, and I told him during the show, it actually was composed by Seiji Yokoyama, and I instantly recognized Seiji Yokoyama's stuff from that anime. Like I like if
Yep.
you did like if you I went there, I was like, is this Seiji Oyama? And I said, and I looked at the full cast list, and lo and behold, he was a composer on it. So that tells you how iconic the music is, to the point where I can recognize his style in another anime completely unrelated to Saint Seiya. That said,
The man was
I was gonna say,
yeah.
the
So, sorry
point
that I
is,
go
you
on.
bring up a
I'll
good
say.
point where it's just like it's something that's iconic, something that grabs your attention, something like if you listen to it, you instantly recognize where it's from, and you don't get that in this. You don't get this in this particular anime.
No, and that's the thing, and that's my. But again, it's very unfair, and I admit that. I'm stating it right now. I don't expect the man to repeat the magic of Yokoyama. Yokoyama was a genius, and he was a legend, and that will never change. Nobody can fill in those shoes, and I'm not expecting that to happen. But what I am expecting is for the people involved in this production to find somebody that can grab the essence of what is the core of the music of this franchise, which is one of its most important and core elements, and they can find a way to, with their own work, either improve or add something new, or at the very least go on the same line as it, because otherwise you get what we're getting, which is basically this show might as well have no soundtrack.
I don't blame you.
And I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. And that's very unfortunate. Again, I don't want to insult the man. I've tried to pay attention to the music, and it's not bad.
It's
not for the show.
Yeah, you're correct.
And
it's so generic because you heard these songs so many times in so many other anime that it starts to bleed together. Like I watch I watch Spy Family. You know, I love Spy Family. But one of the things I like is that it has an iconic. Not only have like a lot of a lot of fun things to it. Like, you know, it's a very funny show and a lot of funny things. But what adds to that is that there's these funny music cues from time to time that just hits you. Because like whenever Anya's trying to do something cute or something, or trying to do or she's doing something, there's like they play the theme again, but like with a kazoo, and even doing stuff like that. Like it's simple stuff like that that gets your attention, and then, like that sticks in your brain. And you don't get that with the new Saint Seiya series. And it came from a pedigree from a series that's iconic for that kind of music, for like music that just strikes you.
Exactly. I'm going to stop saying that point because I think I've made it very clear. But okay, having said that, which I stand by what I said. I just won't beat a dead horse. Having said that, again, the second season itself, it's a great improvement, and I would definitely recommend it to people that are interested in watching or are new to the franchise, or even people that have watched the franchise. Like, okay, it's not gonna be take by take on either the manga or the classic anime, but at least they're definitely trying to improve with its faults, and they should be said and should be criticized. But it is a step in the right direction, and I am very happy for that. Again, I did like it.
My final
and I
thoughts
would
on the
recommend
season is that
Those are my final thoughts.
it had a really strong it had a strong opening, and the middle parts were just as strong as the beginning. And even up to the end, despite these little things here and there at the Virgo fight, there were some strong things to be had on there. Despite all the joking and stuff like that, it's just like it. And the worst part, I think, the worst offender and the part that sticks out of my brain the most is how it all ended. And for a series like this, for a series that the last time we discussed like a season like this, it crashed and burned horribly. For them just to actually just have a minor inconvenient trip, other than a catastrophe, is a huge marked improvement. I hope that things get better. I hope that the whole thing that the whole stuff that we saw at the later half of the series, at the very end of the series, doesn't repeat again. And I do hope that they do take a lot of the complaints of stuff like pacing a little bit more seriously going forward. Other than that, if I as someone with teaching credentials and stuff like that, I can honestly say that this is a marked improvement. I actually would give them an A- compared to I would give them the reward for most improved student, because you actually found a way to do it. I mean, you may have failed here and there, but that's a solid B+ in my book.
And
I think
I want to say one more thing, because I feel I don't know if I explained myself well enough. In the future, when we hopefully most likely definitely get the third season, which will probably definitely most likely just pick up immediately, in the Milo fight, the Scorpio Milo fight. in the future for future people after season 3's come out, where you can just watch season 2 to season 3 just fluidly, all of these complaints probably won't even matter, because you're not going to have to wait 6 months. It's only right now in the moment that this is a really just not great thing for them to do, especially because the world of animation is never guaranteed. Well, the entertainment industry in general is never guaranteed. So you shouldn't, even if the companies come to you and said that you've got 6 seasons, you should treat every season as a potential ending point, even if it's not the best one. You should still treat it as somewhere where you could have most of your season's plot threads tied up or at least answered for. And they didn't do that. They started a whole new slew of things. So that's what I mean when I say it's a horrible place to end. But in the future, when you're watching this show after season 3 comes out, you can just watch straight through to season 3, episode 1, and not notice a difference. Like it would be just as if season 2 was 24 episodes instead of 12.
All right. Well, hey, it was great. Like a part of me does feel bad that I had to make you guys watch that. But this second season, I think things have improved a lot, to the point where it's I going to this season. I think I was a little more excited to do these episodes as opposed to the last one. Was opposed to the last season, where it for about a minute it felt real good, but then also too I felt like there are points where I feel like I would rather pull my own teeth out. But hey, at the end of the day, I'm really happy that we can honestly say that this was a marked improvement. Yeah, at the end of all this, it could have they could have done a lot better. But it's like one of those things where it's like you did a good gymnastics routine, and at the end you just kind of stumbled. You kind of stumbled as you were getting up, and that's as good as you're gonna get. Maybe the Russian judge might be a little harsh, but I give you like an 8, 9, exactly.
They call that not sticking the landing.
I think a good analogy would be to say the previous season was a university student about to fail the entire college, and would have had to drop out. But the second season is that student actually studying and being able to pass.
He stopped drinking
to go on to the next semester.
His book.
So yeah, so it's definitely going in the right direction. I just hope that it stays that way, and I hope that they improve.
Alrighty then.
From what
so, is there any other last minute thing you guys want to bring up before we head out? Kamen Rider Furry?
No, I hope that my intentions came across to everybody. Just that I did not have a miserable experience this time. As opposed to season 1, I did not dread having to watch a television show.
Or any other thoughts? I'm sorry.
I've said. I think I said everything I needed to say about this, about the second season, as well as about this last batch of episodes for Battle for Sanctuary. I just want to say once again, I do not intend any ill or any criticism towards the people themselves that I criticized during the show. I am talking about the work presented here, not their personal.
Don't harass.
I just want to make that very clear. I think I did. Yeah, as well. Like nobody, please have some common sense. I think that I also explained myself well, but I just want to make it very clear. I was talking about the work put in here,
and you
made
it very clear by saying stuff like that they improved drastically as they were working. So that's still a good.
Yeah. That being said, I think I don't have anything more to add to everything.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry. I just got some. All right. So all right, so I think with all that said, I think we better head out. We better head out here for this episode. We've been kind of long, but I think that helps a lot. That we have a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts here, so that it does help a lot. That that these episodes run long, so we have a lot of things to talk about here. So before we go, Benjas, is there anything you would like to plug? Anything you'd like to promote?
Yes, actually, as I mentioned on the last episode, I just created an Instagram account. And I have finally published my first illustration there. So please be sure to check out my profile. You can find it linked on my Twitter, but it is Krateris Benjas. That's the username that I have on Instagram. I also have a Twitter account, which is my private account, but I share a lot of Saint Seiya stuff there, and I post trivia and stuff, information about the manga and other stuff there as well. It's at Mexican Geek 502. I'll also be posting my art there, and I also have another project that hopefully I'll be talking to you about on the next one.
Like to promote anything, like to show anything you like the world to know about?
Is there anything I want to talk about? I'm actually really busy right now. I am on the Cosmocast, obviously, so this takes up a little bit of my time. But the most of my time, because I actually have to do the behind the scenes stuff, whereas here I just kind of show up, is Ancient Anime. We have three phenomenal episodes, sorry, coming up in the very near future. So on Halloween, we are dropping our double feature. It's harkening back to like going to a drive-in and seeing like two kind of low budget Halloween movies is the vibe, and this year's theme is vampires. So we are doing one episode with my friend Rika, who has been on a recent episode as well, where we talked about Fatal Fury. But for the Halloween version, the first half is going to be me and Rika doing Blood the Last Vampire, and the second half is going to be me and Ramses doing let me make sure I get the name of this right. Dracula Sovereign of the Damned, which you've probably never heard of, but we're going to tell you about it because boy. But then so that's going to premiere on Halloween. That'll be up first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. Central Time, because that's my time zone, so that's how I talk. Is going to be the double feature episode. Then 2 Mondays later is going to be a super, super special episode. It is my first ever celebrity guest that I have had on that podcast, and I'm very, very pumped about it. I don't want to say who it is yet, but it is somebody from Dragula Titans, which is the new season of the kind of more alternative take to the Drag Race format. It's done by
it's not related. It's not related to the Rob Zombie album.
But no, it's not related to that either. But it's a drag reality competition show that specifically focuses on horror elements. So it always comes out every year around Halloween time. And this is their all-stars cast. So all of these are people that have been on the show before. So it's somebody from that, which is super exciting. And also relating to Dragula, kind of as a double whammy, with the reason why I mentioned that is that my second podcast with my friend Diamonds is going to be starting very, very soon. We're aiming for the 27th to be the first episode, and we are going to be reviewing Dragula every single week and kind of spilling any like tea or gossip that we're seeing online, and hopefully having some of them on the show because they're all super sweet and super personable. But that's all TBA. The first episode obviously is just going to be me and Diamonds because we're at the final finish line of this. But you can follow that podcast at Honey Baby Pod on Instagram, on Twitter. Sorry, we don't have an Instagram just yet. So it's at Honey Baby Pod. The name of it is Honey, This Is a Podcast Baby. It's a reference to Drag Race Canada. If you know, you know, but it's my favorite Drag Race joke that's ever existed.
Yes, you used it. You used it on me a couple of times.
Everything. So
Honey, this is a Wendy's.
This is a podcast, baby, because it was somebody impersonating.
Exactly, I love
Sir,
it.
this is a Wendy's. It has that same kind of vibe, but it was somebody impersonating. It was one of the queens impersonating Mariah Carey and doing a very bad job, iconically, and it's really funny. But yeah, it's at Honey Baby Pod. It's gonna be called Honey, This Is a Podcast, Baby. And as always, you can follow me at Kamen Rider Furry on Instagram and Twitter, and make sure to give at Ancient Anime Pod some love as well. And that was my long-winded.
All right. As for me, per usual, I have this podcast, which hopefully all you guys will listen to because I put in a lot of love and effort into this podcast. I love doing this show with you guys. You guys are just like. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do this, but at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my god, when are we gonna do this next? So I'm always happy. I'm always happy to be doing these. Always happy to have to be doing these shows. But I'm also very happy to be doing the other show, the Saturday Morning Squadron. If you haven't followed that show, it's at satamsquad.tumblr.com, and the address is at satamsquad.tumblr.com. We have all our episodes archived right there. If you want to listen to all of our shows we've done, in this episode we actually had a good friend of mine. His name was Doc. He hosts so many podcasts, and we just. It was an honor to have him because he is like one of the pillars of like one of my inspirations to be doing this podcast. So it was really great to have him on my other show, just to have him on and just like talk about like life and stuff like that. But in particular, what we have a discussion on is on horror. If you have any interest in horror, like if you love horror video games, horror TV, horror movies, that is a great episode to check out, and we just go off on all the horror that you. So if you really enjoy all of that, you give that episode a listen, and I really would appreciate any kind of feedback on that episode. Also, too, if you notice, I have something posted on my Twitter for that episode on Saturday AM Squad. That if you retweet, if you like and you comment on that particular post, you'll be eligible to win 10 US eShop points, so you can use on like any game you want for like the Nintendo Switch. So you can check. So if you want 10 eShop bucks, there you go. So you're eligible to win that by following the instructions.
And I've already asked, and he said that he can't rig me.
Yeah, I saw you post I saw you think like 50 different accounts. You're not gonna fool me.
Kamen Rider
it's just your
Furry.
avatar with a mustache,
here to
different mustaches, different hats. Like, yes.
Don't make me reference Family Guy third time in this episode. Don't make me do
also,
it.
Concerning this show, if you want to check out what we would been up to with like the show itself, like if you want to see archive of all our previous episodes, and also know about a little bit more about the podcast and listen to the podcast, on the on a convenient website, you can go to our official website at stcosmocast.com. Again, the address is stcosmocast.com, all in one word, and you can find everything there on how to subscribe to the show, how to listen to the show, listen to the episodes on the website, and also to learn a little bit about like the people involved with the show, like you learn a little bit about like who we are and stuff like and what we've been up to. So yeah, with all that said, guys, this has been another great episode. I'm Ramses, and that's Kamen Rider Furry, and for Benjas, I'm here to tell you guys keep burning that cosmos, and I will see you all next time. Bye!
Bye!
Take care!